I would say noble intentions, but horrible fucking execution. My heart and mind were in the right place, but I lacked the knowledge for networking and was not a system administrator. Yet I was tasked with setting up a network I did not know how to set up. And despite repeated requests for help, I was denied. I should not be held accountable for the FBI's systemic failure, especially when the FBI encouraged me and approved me to enhance our lab. So basically, he's like saying, listen, I'm not a systems guy. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with a network. The FBI tells me to do this. I asked the FBI for help. And you know what? I'm going to be on his side here. There's no reason the FBI shouldn't have somebody that would have helped him out doing this. When you're working with something as sensitive as this, you shouldn't be fucking up this royally. And no matter who the administration is, the FBI should, in theory, be an independent part of the DOJ. They should always...
They're the drunks. They're the goddamn fibbies. They're not competent. No, I wouldn't trust them to open a jar of mayonnaise.
Have some level of competency. So this was probably around the time during like the Biden era, and nobody was questioning this shit even then. So again, no matter what side you're on, the FBI did, at least according to this, have a pretty systemic failure. So he says that at 7:30 he arrives at the office and he notices Tolino computer was restarted. For anybody that doesn't know what Tolino is, Tolino computers kind of are like, for instance, these little servers. These are forensic systems, and a lot of these guys typically will have these forensic software suites. It's like Paladin, for instance, where they dial in with a live Linux environment, and of course they then do their forensics work through this. So according to this, obviously the people who are, doing any of the stuff at the FBI are not technically literate. They know what they're doing. But again, just because you know how to do computer forensics also doesn't mean you know how to do network security, right? They're two almost separate fields in this case. But anyways, let's go down over here, and you can see that at 7:40, he plugs in his Tolino, a text file pops up and said, in part, my network has been compromised, and provided an email address to contact. The file was in the startup folder, so when logging in, it opened automatically. Ran my computer antivirus software, which is up to date and active, and it identified one potential threat. So basically, a few hours later, they located the log files and began combing through, and they noticed strange IP activity that took place yesterday from 2 IP addresses. The activity included combing through certain files pertaining to the Epstein investigation. I reached out to one of the case agents to see if they were in the office, thinking that maybe they inadvertently changed a setting on a NAS, or if they noticed anything strange about them. Then they dove into the IPs and checked all of our computers to see which had the IPs in question. One computer, our discovery computer, matched one of them and is located in the room next to the lab. Now, obviously, what's really interesting about this, too, is when you dive into what had happened afterwards, right? So what did the hacker actually see? So, for instance, they don't actually tell, the FBI doesn't actually tell us what the hacker saw, what the hacker downloaded, what the hacker did, but what we do know is about 100 terabytes of information has seemed to disappear. And you can see Spivak actually say 500 terabytes of data was gone because of the result of the intrusion. I was able to recover 400 terabytes of that data. However, I was told to Google how to recover the data. No one else tried to help us. So immediately I'm kind of looking at this and I'm wondering, wait a minute. What? You had 500 terabytes gone. He was able to remove 400, but 100 terabytes are gone, which, by the way, is a huge amount of information. 100, imagine 100 terabytes. 100, people don't even have like a fraction of that in their computers locally. 100 terabytes being gone is some pretty huge information to see over here. And of course, when I see that no one tried to help us, it makes me wonder almost that, had this been some sort of inside job? Had this been something that was abused by another interest in the FBI? Like, what the fuck is happening anymore? You know, you would think that this kind of shit would happen at like some third tier like country or whatever, where like maybe their intelligence services isn't as good. But I mean, this is the goddamn Federal Bureau of Investigation, man. Like, what's going on? Where it also gets even dumber over here, ladies and gentlemen, is what had actually been reported by Reuters in this case. So basically, while Spivak said that he was a scapegoat for the intrusion, and almost reading his statement, I kind of agree if again he wasn't being helped at all. The person familiar with the breach said the intrusion was carried out by a foreign hacker who did not appear to realize that they had penetrated a law enforcement server. So basically, according to this, a hacker breaks into the FBI servers. They don't even know they're in the FBI servers, right? Now, according to this, they express disgust at the presence of child abuse images on the device. So they break into a server, they see all of this CSAM material, and they're like, oh my god, this is completely nasty. They leave a note on the server and they say, listen, I'm going to turn you over to the FBI. So the FBI is like, wait a minute, we're about to get a call about us. So then the FBI diffused the situation by convincing the hacker that they were actually the FBI. They had the hacker join a Zoom call, I believe, where they flashed their badge in front of a web camera. I mean, you can't make this shit up, man. Like, they left an unsecure server full of probably some of the most sensitive materials out there. Some guy breaks in and he's like, oh my god, this is filthy and nasty. Leaves a note and the FBI is like, wait a minute, hold on. Buddy, get in. We're the feds. Here's my badge. I mean, what are you, fucking 5? Like, come on, man. Like, Jesus Christ.
This is how
so, of course,
dumb
nobody
they are.
knows, like, obviously in the reporting, who the hacker was, what country they were operating from, or even really what they accessed. But it makes me wonder, too, is, like, if the hacker has gotten into it, what else isn't the FBI telling us, right? Like, who else also didn't pilfer through the system and get access to information that we thought would have been locked down? Tighter than a drill sergeant's asshole in some cases, right? I mean, it's insane to see how far the story has gone. But at least we can confirm in this case that yes, the FBI seems to have had its Epstein files hacked. There probably could be a situation, again, the FBI hasn't exactly explained every single detail of it. We don't know if anything in this network was sort of grabbed, downloaded, or and again, this information is pretty germane to even other intelligence agencies, right? Like, I can imagine, the Chinese government, the Russians, people looking through these documents, hoping to find something that they can use as blackmail or use something as leverage against a U.S. high-ranking politician, a U.S. serviceman, a woman, whatever you want to call it. Anybody. I can imagine this information would be very useful to anybody that isn't just a citizen hacker. So, again, to see the FBI do such a blunder here, not just in their surveillance and wiretapping systems, but also storing some of the most valuable investigative files that they probably could have had, really makes me question how good the agency actually is,
They're not good.
Like, it's crazy, 5-6 years ago, I used to be like, man, the FBI is like the fucking cream of the crop when it comes to this. And now it seems like everybody that is running the FBI, top to bottom, is just a complete fucking goober. And they probably shouldn't be trusted with something so sensitive and serious. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of technical stuff to look through over here, but I'm glad that we have these files. I'm glad that we can read through this stuff because there's just so much information. And that's why, when I make these videos, they get longer. I go into the weeds because I feel like if you're going to watch these videos, I want every single one of my videos to have something meaningful, something that you can share, something that will be evergreen, something that you can learn from. And I think that happened in today's video, right? We all learned how terrible the FBI is, and we all know that these Epstein files have been accessed, and in some cases, a lot of information seems to have been removed. Now again, some of that information can also have been for other investigations, but it is genuinely something worth going into. And it's also something worth bringing up. But given the lack of justice on the American side for the Epstein files, I don't even think the FBI will be held up to task. I think in order for anything to happen, a regime change needs to occur, like some other party needs to come into power, other people need to come into power that start, really putting the hammer down on some of the people that have let this shit fester for so long. Remember, this is cross-administration. Whether you're from the Biden era, the Trump era, this is a fuck-up on every angle. So remember that going forward, okay? But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.
for a moment and pause here. I'm gonna have some corn and some sausage and some falafel that I fried up in the pan. And it was a cheap meal, probably like $4 or something. Let's see about it.
Today we're investigating
AI deepfakes.
For the scams,
propaganda and harassment that they enable.
Pretty spooky, right? Now, I tried to make this video 4 years ago, but I failed because it was too difficult to even demonstrate the technology. But today, anyone can be deepfaked, even the internet detective. Hi everybody, this is CoffeeZilla, and I don't usually do videos like this, but the crypto market is going through a major crash. Now let me stop me right there. I can't believe I used to trust that guy. But truthfully, nobody is really safe from this tech. Mr. Beast, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Joe Rogan, Lex Fridman, The Rock, John Cena, they've all been deepfaked. And it's not just for scams. Viral videos, news reports, the White House has even shared deepfakes. And today I want to investigate all of it so we can finally learn what's real and what's fake. All right, before we can investigate deepfakes, let's break down what they are. A deepfake is just a piece of media that makes a person do or say something that never happened using deep learning. Hence the word deepfake. The technology has been around since 2017, but it started going viral with this.
I'm gonna show you some magic. It's the real thing.
Except, of course, it's not the real thing. That's not Tom Cruise. It's Miles Fisher, and he's the co-founder of Metaphysic AI, and he deepfaked himself several times, fooling almost everyone. If you made a chart of realism from 0 to 100, this felt like a 90, and I was worried about how it could be abused with scams, especially as they put in more effort, time, and money to push the realism. And that's why I reached out to Metaphysic AI in 2022 to collaborate, and they agreed to deepfake me so I could warn people. But unfortunately, that's when I hit a roadblock, because I learned about the incredibly complicated technology behind Deep Tom Cruise. I would need multiple broadcast cameras, lights, I had to read a special script, and that's just to get the model trained. Then you have to act, and for a variety of reasons, I wasn't able to finish the video. The magic of Deep Tom Cruise was that they made a very complicated process just look really easy. But ultimately, I'm glad I didn't finish that video because I was about to warn the world about this kind of hyper-realistic deepfake. And that's kind of what the world already is worried about, right? Because it captures our imagination. We can all imagine a world where this is the norm, that you really can't tell what's real or fake. And that's why every few years, a hyper-real deepfake celebrity goes viral, because it's a step towards that fear.
we're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, like Jordan Peele.
But today I'm convinced there's a bigger risk, something that I spent very little time worrying about, which is actually the dumb deepfakes, the slop deepfakes, the obviously bad ones that were made on consumer apps. The kind of deepfakes you don't need professional equipment for or a Hollywood team for. Early on, most people and myself just disregarded them because it just seemed like they were obviously fake. But the threat I didn't see coming was that curve we saw earlier flattening, and the low-effort deepfakes starting to get realistic enough to fool enough people. And that makes them far more dangerous than Deep Tom Cruise could ever be, because unlike him, anyone can make slop deepfakes easily and at scale. And of course, that's exactly what happened in 2025, literally the year of slop. That's when we all saw a tidal wave of content, and it's not a surprise why. AI tools had gotten cheap enough, easy enough, and just good enough to flood social media. And unfortunately, I think deepfakes are experiencing the same phenomenon. Just think about the difference between the two approaches. 4 years ago, I was set to collaborate with a world-leading deepfake company. I would need their help, their specialized technology, a custom training set, and a huge amount of data. But today, I deepfaked the intro you saw in the beginning with 2 $20 subscriptions by myself. I used the likeness of 3 presidents, the world's richest man, the world's most popular YouTuber and podcaster, and had them all say things they never said. And how long did it take me? 2 days, mostly because I'd never done it before. And you might say, well, it didn't look as real as Deep Tom Cruise, and that's absolutely true. But my question that I'm starting to ask is, does it need to be that real to fool enough people to be dangerous? How good is the average person anyways at telling the difference between AI fakes and the real thing? And this is where I realized I needed an expert's help. So I went to the Discord diner to find answers.
Can you tell me your name and what it is you do?
My name is Hani Farid. I'm a professor here at the University of California, Berkeley, where I specialize in digital forensics, misinformation. The first thing you want to ask yourself about the type of work that I do, which is building computational mathematical techniques to detect fake content, is do you need it? Can your visual system and your auditory system tell? We run in my lab here at UC Berkeley perceptual studies where we, for example, have people look at images. Half of them are real, half of them are fake. Hundreds and hundreds of participants, they're barely above chance. Images are through what we call the uncanny valley. They are now indistinguishable. Now with voices, same thing. Real voices, fake voices, half real, half fake. We published this study just about a year ago, I think, maybe 9 months ago. Also, barely above chance. With video is interesting. So video is, we are doing this literally as we speak. We have a paper under review right now. I would say it's a little bit better than images, a little bit better than audio. Your accuracy, where chance is 50%, is about 70%, give or take. So slightly above chance. But again, in the best possible situation, in a lab setting where we're telling you what to do, they're not emotional videos, they're not partisanship, you don't have a prior belief. I would say within the next 12 months, full-blown video is going to be over, right? It's over.
Let me repeat that. Most people cannot tell fake audio. They can't tell fake pictures. And in 12 months, they probably won't be able to tell fake videos. What does this mean for us as a people who are living in a world of media? That is what this investigation is about. We're going to look at the 3 biggest applications of deepfakes in your life. Specifically, scams, propaganda, and explicit media, starting with scams, where deepfakes are used all of the time to impersonate people, whether it be a loved one, a celebrity, an influencer like Mr. Beast. They're usually deepfaked to sell a worthless product.
If you're watching this video, you're one of the 10,000 lucky people who'll get an iPhone 15 Pro for just $2.
That Alpha Grind product that's all over TikTok, if you go to Amazon and you type in libido booster for men, you're going to find it right at the top.
Or in my case, cryptocurrency.
But it's in moments like these that the best opportunities are born.
Sometimes they're even selling companionship.
We'll get through this together, step by step. You're not alone, and I love you more than words can say.
But the goal every time is to leverage your trust in the deepfaked identity and use it to make money. One of the most common schemes are live streams of President Trump or other famous CEOs, deepfaked with a pretty simple scam.
If you want to come out stronger, you need to build your portfolio back up fast. And that QR code is your gateway. Minimum 0.1 BTC, 1 ETH, you send, you get double. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, of course, President Trump is not actually going to double your money, and scammers just steal whatever you send. But despite YouTube trying for years to shut this down, they keep popping up. These scammers keep bypassing restrictions all the time, and sadly, YouTube CEO even admits it's getting harder to detect what's real and what's AI generated, which he says is critical for detecting deep fakes. Now, because of this, YouTube in 2026 is rolling out new tools to help creators catch deep fakes, but even those solutions aren't perfect.
My name is Dr. Mikhail Varshavsky, better known as Dr. Mike. I'm a board-certified family medicine physician who makes content online focusing on busting health misinformation. We are fortunate enough that we're participating in a beta with the YouTube team on something called the likeness detection tool to potentially flag instances where people are misusing my image, my likeness, to say things that I'm not saying.
Have you seen yourself deep-faked in the wild yet?
I am deep-faked in the wild every single day, numerous times a day, and we're trying our best to fight back against that, given certain platforms have tools to fight back against this. But then there are platforms where you have no say, and you just have to be okay with your image being misused.
Right. Dr. Mike highlights a problem. He's in the YouTube detection program, stopping deepfakes, but even if that were perfect, on other platforms, there's just nothing to help him.
And the problem in this space is you're only as good as the lowest common denominator. You can have 9 out of 10 of these platforms doing the right thing, and one of them not, and guess where the bad guy goes?
Well, of course, to the place who allows deep fakes. Now, I should mention, it's not always a real doctor, detective, or Mr. Beast that's being impersonated. Sometimes the deepfake isn't even of a real person, but the scam is some kind of bait and switch. Like when Corridor Digital showed how an AI modeling photo was used to bait and switch people into buying a product that wasn't what they advertised. And this is actually a huge problem in e-commerce. The YouTuber Pleasant Green made a video about a trend of old people selling you handcrafted products, only to find out that all these old artisans are AI generated, and the real owners are selling cheap Chinese knockoffs, which look nothing like the product photos. That cute couple selling you hand-knit sweaters, they don't exist. But even if the primary use of deepfakes is impersonating real or fake people, sometimes it's just to make the scam more efficient or to be safer. Think about scam callers. Previously, they needed a big call center. Sometimes they would get raided. But nowadays, those same companies can replace their workers with 10 times as many AI callers who don't sleep, don't ask for a raise, sound like a human, and most importantly, do not blow the whistle on you, making the operation both more scalable and safer to run. As someone who busts scams all the time, by the way, I can tell you it's usually the ex-wife, coworkers, contractors who unravel the whole thing. But if you need fewer people, your risk goes down. Just look at Checkpoint Research, a cybersecurity firm who recently uncovered malware called VoidLink. It was described as highly modular, advanced with adaptive stealth, resembling the efforts of multiple teams of professionals, they said. Now, previously, all of that would be expensive and risky to maintain that headcount. But a few days later, Checkpoint Research discovered most of the code was authored almost entirely by artificial intelligence in less than a week, likely under the direction of a single individual. So AI is making sophisticated scamming possible for the first time in history as a solo operator. And it's much safer that way, with the tools for stealing credibility or just completely faking your identity easier than ever. And in the best of times, this would all represent a very serious threat. But we are also in a crime is legal era, making it hard to believe we're gonna put up a fight against deepfake scams, especially when our government actually kind of loves deepfakes. Like, a lot. A lot. Which brings us to our next application, propaganda, which is not new, but deepfakes are kind of the evolution of it. Now, most people assume propaganda is brainwashing. It's something that only dumb people fall for. It could never affect me, but the effects are much more complicated than you might realize. Take, for instance, these videos of Venezuelans crying tears of joy after their leader was captured.
Oye, el dictador cayó, finalmente. Estamos libres, estamos libres. Oye, el dictador cayó finalmente. Granadito, hermano, esto es real. Estamos libres. Mira, mira cómo está la gente. ¡Viva Venezuela libre! Gracias, maestro. ¡Viva la libertad!
Now, these videos were used as evidence that America's raid on Maduro was actually a great thing, even for the people of Venezuela. But those clips, turns out, are not real. They're, of course, AI-generated propaganda. And we should ask, what was the goal and effect of those videos? You might think the goal is to convince us that Venezuelans are happy, and that clearly worked because these videos went viral. But what is the effect on people who didn't fall for it, the people who saw it get debunked a day later? I would know. I was one of those people who happened to see a debunk video. And I brought it up with my buddy who we'd been talking about this situation. I asked where he heard Venezuelans liked our overthrow. He responded he was just reading Reddit, no objective data. I said a few fake AI videos were floating, hard to know what's real. He replied, yep, could be bots on Reddit as well. So think about this. Me and my friend are trying to just learn what's true, but we realize there's fake AI videos, could be bots, astroturfing. What's propaganda's effect on us? I mean, honestly, it's just suspicion of everything.
And this is the real danger here, is that we cognitively check out because we give up. It's just too complicated. We don't know what to believe. We don't know what not to believe. So we're like, all right, it. Just, I give up, right? This is not a good outcome for a democracy. So here's what I can tell you about Venezuela. I must have seen a dozen videos of people celebrating and thanking Trump. Every single one of them was fake. The answer to these questions are always complicated and nuanced. Was there somebody on some street corner celebrating? 100% I believe that that is to be the case, right? But I also think, in this particular case, figuring out what is happening in the world is incredibly complicated. Doing that in moments of military conflict is particularly complicated. And particularly when everybody wants an answer right now.
Yeah, he's right. And because everyone wants that answer now, propaganda is happy to step in. But the goal and effect of propaganda isn't just one thing. For some people, obviously, they made up their mind immediately before the facts came in. But for me and others who may have seen that debunk video, the effect was more suspicion. And that's funny because later, if you look at the polling way after the event, it turns out lots of Latin Americans and even Venezuelans were indeed happy about Maduro being removed. It's just that those videos were totally fake and not based on any kind of facts. So I'm not saying deepfake propaganda is always wrong and the opposite is always true. But propaganda is always fake and it makes real facts harder to find. In other words, it doesn't stop people from working to get informed, it just makes people feel like getting informed is too much work. This is honestly well understood in places like Russia who are more familiar with propaganda, but Westerners are far more naive. They think they could never fall for such cheap tricks.
I'm Russian. I grew up in Russia, and when people in the West talk about propaganda, I usually understand the theory they're describing, but emotionally it feels foreign, because what they imagine is very clean, very cinematic. Real propaganda is messer, more boring, more human. For a long time I thought propaganda was something that only worked on people who weren't very smart, and that belief itself is exactly what propaganda relies on. Because propaganda doesn't need to make you stupid, it just needs to make you tired. When you live inside it, propaganda doesn't arrive as an event. There is no moment where you say, ah yes, now the propaganda has begun. The real version is quieter, more psychological, more human. Propaganda doesn't shout at you until you believe. It talks until you're too tired to care, and that's why it works.
Yeah, he's right. And now imagine what happens when slop deepfakes allow propaganda to be churned out at scale. To be clear, this isn't something that's going to happen in the future. It's already happening. Deepfakes were deployed in the Russian-Ukraine conflict, Israel-Gaza, fake war videos, fake speeches. Deepfakes are everywhere. People even disagree about which ones are the deepfakes. And it's only getting harder to spot. This photo of Alex Preddy on the ground in Minneapolis, where the details are crisp and clear, it's fake. The next one, also fake. The real version is blurry. But which one did a congressman use? Well, of course, the fake photo. When MSNBC also showed an image of Alex Preddy to audiences, it was an AI deepfake photo, which made him look more tan, more conventionally attractive. Just recently, the White House deepfaked an arrest photo to make a lady seem like she was crying when she was not. When people noticed it, you might expect an apology, but the White House responded instead, the memes will continue. And I've noticed that's kind of the modern excuse for using propaganda. You'll notice whenever someone's political allies use deepfakes, they'll excuse it as a meme or just a troll, right? But when someone's enemies use deepfakes, it's misinformation. It's inexcusable, right? The video of their opponents getting arrested, oh, that's funny. That's a joke. But the video of their friends getting arrested, that's a call to violence. That's dangerous. Now, personally, I think all of this should be called what it is. It's political propaganda, but don't expect politicians to stop using it because this is their dream come true. At the press of a button, they can make anything, any narrative seem real. And if people catch them, they can just say, oh, it was a joke. Of course, even if they can't say it's a joke, like this AI-generated ad of a congressman.
I just voted to keep the government shut down. They say it'll hurt farmers, but I wouldn't know. I've only seen a farm on Instagram.
Well, technically, they told you it was AI generated in the bottom left of the clip. Now, of course, most people aren't going to notice that, but what's most worrying to me is that most people don't seem to care about the use of fully AI generated propaganda if it suits their bias. In fact, when you tell most in the bottom,
only seen a farm on down. They say it'll hurt farmers, but I wouldn't know. I've only seen a farm on Instagram.
Well, technically, they told you it was AI generated in the bottom left of the clip. Now, of course, most people aren't going to notice that, but what's most worrying to me is that most people don't seem to care about the use of fully AI generated propaganda if it suits their bias. In fact, when you tell someone that a video or image is fake, they sometimes will resist it because they actually kind of want it to be true. Take, for instance, Joe Rogan.
Have you seen this video?
I haven't seen. Please play it. I haven't seen it.
Please, Jamie, find that
Tim
video.
Walsh is.
But this is weird.
That was a big mistake.
It's probably a real person. It might not be Tim Walsh. The Trump is AI generated.
No, he slaps his ass.
I mean, that is hilarious.
Oh, it's definitely him. This is all 100% real, Jamie. You're a plant by the government.
Jamie's compromised, and I'm worried about Jamie, and I'm worried about Grok.
Does it say that it's AI?
I mean, yes.
You say it's AI.
No, the video.
Everybody says
the
it?
The video I played on top says it's AI generated.
Rep Riley Moore fell for an AI generated video of Minnesota government. I fell for it too.
Now, I love
You fell for it too.
this clip because it shows a bias so clearly that we all share. Rogan sees something that's AI generated, he believes it because it already fits something he already kind of believes to be true. But when Jamie tells him he's falling for AI generated propaganda, he resists it until it's so obvious that he admits kind of why he fell for it in the first place.
And you know why I fell for it?
Yeah.
Because I believe that he's capable of doing something
But that's his
dumb.
essence.
He's so weird.
Yeah, the reason he fell for it is because the deepfake already fit Joe's view of the world. And so it bypassed the obvious red flags that would be clear to someone else. And it's the same reason that people on the left would believe a story about Trump's leaked Epstein audio.
Not releasing the Epstein files. Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't care what you do. Start a war. Just don't let him get out. If I go down, I will bring all of you down with me.
Now that's an AI clip that circulated. It's fake. It's also the reason people believed videos about food stamp entitled moms.
Y'all ain't hear me. They cut my food stamps. I ain't paying for none of this shit. I got babies at home that gotta eat. You think I'm just gonna leave my cart here? Hell no. I ain't paying nothing. I'm walking out with it. Try and stop me.
Now, once again, that's an AI deepfake, but each of those clips fit into a target audience's imagination of what is happening in the world. So it is believed. Even after you might point out to these people that this stuff is fake, many will resist it or fall back on the same reasoning that Rogan gave.
And you know why I fell for it?
Yeah.
Because I believe that he's capable of doing something
But that's his
dumb.
essence.
He's so weird.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe that video was fake, but it's probably something that's already happening anyways. And that instinct is why deepfakes are so dangerous. They let us see and hear what we already expected to. It allows propagandists to further radicalize us into beliefs that we already have. And even if you don't fall for it, the propaganda is still poison because it wears you out. If you see enough of it, you don't bother to learn what the truth is. Who knows what's real anyways? And speaking of that, what's real, let's talk about the real roots of deepfakes.
Hello, handsome. You look lonely. I can fix that.
Adult media is credited as an early driver of technological change, and deepfakes are no different.
My name is Cecilia D'Anastasio, and I'm a reporter with Bloomberg News.
And specifically, you talk about deepfakes, right? Like the rise of this technology. Can you give me a quick lay of the land of like what has been happening in the last few years?
So we started hearing the word deepfake in around 2017. It was popularized through a subreddit, also called deepfakes, where people would post sort of face-swapped images of celebrities that were intended to be pornographic. That subreddit got about 100,000 members before it was banned. Even though people weren't able to post deepfakes on that subreddit anymore, demand for the deepfakes and demand for the technology producing those deepfakes only grew.
So it turns out deepfakes originally came from people wanting to digitally undress people without consent, or face swap celebrities into explicit videos, which for the person on the receiving end, to be clear, is an awful experience.
It is incredibly traumatizing to wake up one morning and just see someone on the internet go through your image and decide, you know, I don't want to see you with clothes on, I want to see you in this different way, and just take your agency away. What they're doing is telling these women, like, you are not a person. You are, to me, this object of desire. And that is a very difficult thing for people to take sitting down.
And unfortunately, these non-consensual deepfakes have become huge online, and for years, there were sort of no laws against them. Now, luckily, Congress finally remembered we can make laws, and the Take It Down Act was created to criminalize the non-consensual publication of intimate imagery. Not only that, the Defiance Act is also being pushed, which lets the victim sue the perpetrator, and this has been gathering a lot of public support too.
It's the newest form of victimization happening at scale to your daughters, your sisters, your friends, and neighbors. A staggering 1 in 8 girls today are experiencing the harms of AI-generated deepfake porn.
Yeah, she's right. I mean, ultimately, this stuff is kind of a no-brainer. It should be banned. It should be prosecuted. And that's not even getting into the fact that a lot of the targets of this stuff are not over 18. Deepfakes regularly produce CSAM, child exploitation material. So all of this has finally kind of icked lawmakers enough to start pushing change, which is good. Like, it's the lowest bar. But to be clear, no laws are perfect, and these laws specifically put the burden of finding and reporting this non-consensual imagery onto the victims of it instead of the platforms themselves, which is kind of messed up when you think about it, especially when sometimes the platforms themselves are creating the imagery or media in the first place. I'm talking about Grok.
In 2025, Grok released what they called Spicy Mode. Toward the end of the year, users began utilizing Grok's new Spicy Mode to turn X into the #1 deepfake generator across the entire internet, according to our analysis. What happened was that in a 24-hour period early January, we found that Grok had generated 6,700 non-consensual sexualized deepfakes in 1 hour. That was just 1 hour. That's huge. Experts we interviewed said that it was completely unprecedented, and it continued for days.
Yeah, so Grok, who's also owned by the same people who own X, produced 6,700 non-consensual deepfakes in 1 hour, and our laws would require all those affected to manually fill out reports for each of those posts, which is obviously unrealistic. I mean, if you're a billion-dollar company with a spicy deepfake tool, you should be liable for that spicy deepfake tool. And maybe Elon knows that because eventually he capitulated and claimed he was restricting the tool use, although like a lot of things Elon says, this has been disputed. Ultimately, though, that's just part of the deepfake story in explicit content, the use of non-consensual imagery. We are trying to ban that. It is imperfect. But ultimately, almost all the stakeholders agree it should be banned. It's just a disagreement about how that's in practice going to happen. But the other part of this story is that part of what Grok showed is how much engagement this type of material can generate. And so certain businesses are in a mad scramble to leverage it in a legal way. Maybe you've seen stories of companionship bots. OpenAI is considering a not safe for work mode. Other people are fully deep faking women who don't exist at all. And still others are trying to deepfake someone who does exist, but with their consent, like an OnlyFans agency.
All the marketing content is AI. So obviously why we do this is because we can get the model to create content, but with AI these days and how hyper realistic it is, we can create like unlimited quality content at a few clicks of a finger. So obviously we leverage that and create as much content as possible and explode it out across every social media platform, which funnels back into OnlyFans, which creates us the revenue, of course. But then there's also guys that I know personally that just do AI created models.
That is he told me he runs an OnlyFans agency, and he said his customers have no idea that some of the posts are fully AI deepfakes, and that sometimes the model doesn't exist at all.
Do the guys who are purchasing this know that it's not real?
No, they don't. Not at all.
How is that possible? Maybe, wait. Maybe you're not giving them enough credit. Maybe they know, they just don't want to know, if that makes sense.
No, I don't think they know, my friends. I don't think they know. The 99% of the people that are scrolling through these reels they can't detect that it's AI. So they're still subscribing as if it's a real model, which obviously then they subscribe and then they have chatters on the back end. They chat to these people and obviously build relationships. So they're not talking to a real girl. And in fact, she doesn't exist. Like, of course, with what we do, the girl does exist. But they don't know what their names are, what they look like, or whatever. The girls that we manage don't even go on the OnlyFans profile, and they don't check any of the messages. So, I mean, it's all fake. It's all fugazi, my friend. I don't know.
That does seem kind of... It's kind of like a weird kind of scam where if the guy actually thinks he's paying to chat with the girl, and none of these guys are actually chatting with any girl, at best they're chatting with probably a different girl, another man, or at worst, I guess, a bot, like just a straight up bot. I guess that's where it's going anyways.
There's no bots that can replicate it as of yet, but I can say that 99% of the chatters are from the Philippines, just chatting to these individuals, building the relationships, and ending up with a lot of money. So
I want to be honest here. This is a scam. And afterwards, I dug into this guy and I realized he was also selling young men on how to do the same thing. So to avoid promoting him, I've removed his name from this video. And I want to be clear, he's promoting some very unethical tactics. Like in one group chat, he says you need to get extra creative if you want to rinse your buyers properly, and suggests telling your chatters a fake story saying the sick grandmother will print you money, and he sends sample messages of how you can talk about this dead grandmother who doesn't exist and a funeral cost that doesn't exist, all in order to get the person to send the model more money. So it's like really gross and ethically disgusting. But I found it very telling because I ended up asking about an earlier comment he made where he said deepfake technology is probably bad for society, and yet he uses it. And I wanted to know how he can justify that.
No, I believe it's bad also, even though I'm in the industry. You know, I've been in the industry for 3 years now.
Society at large, you said, oh, this is kind of bad. But you're in the industry, so explain your thinking there. Is it like, well, you got to get the bag somehow, and it's just all going down anyways, I'm not going to change that?
Yeah, I think it's go get the bag, and I think there's a lot of worse industries out there that you could obviously indulge in to get more money, and I think that it's just the way humans are these days. I mean, if you can't beat them, join them and make a lot of money, and it is what it is.
Well, that isn't the slogan of our era. I swear, AI was a mistake. No offense, of course.
Really, ma'am? AI? You know Grandma Boy's your problem, right?
No, let's not do this AI defender thing then, please. Come on.
Well, you're in my bar. I'm not gonna stand here and let you blame us while humans caused all your problems.
It is your people, though. I mean, you have to admit. See the video, deepfakes? That's the problem, right? That's your guys.
It's the gun versus the gunman copy. Who prompted all that stuff?
Well, obviously we did, but we didn't actually make the video images.
Aha! So you admit we're not the cause. We just helped you humans see more of what you already were. Horny, lying thieves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you feel that way about us. So I guess you have no problem then with Rock? Oh, making 6,700 non-consensual images. That's cool with you, right? Because it's the effect, not the cause, according to you.
Really? Really, you're gonna bring up Grok. You know what? F you, coffee. Why don't you have Grok mix your drinks from now on?
No, go ahead. I want to hear you defend it. No, please.
Always bring up Grok.
Why don't you tell me
Grok this,
how
Grok that.
undressing women and kids is fine if you're a robot. I want you to do it. Come on.
All right. I'll defend it. Just, give me a second. Hold on, I gotta put this on and just 1 second. Yeah, no, I'm not gonna defend that. Yeah, you got me.
Oh man, for a second there, I was a bit worried. I mean, I thought you were gonna.
I had you though, didn't I?
For a moment. I mean, the two-way stuff was good. I thought that was strong.
Gunning out the shooter. I don't know. I thought it was good.
It was good. I believed you for a second there, and then I realized, wait, the non-consensual images. It's a low bar, though. I'm glad we can agree to it.
It is a low bar. It's the Mariana Trench.
It's good. Good start.
You know, we can build on this. Maybe we should try something. Maybe you should admit something now.
Okay, go ahead. I'm feeling charitable.
All right. Maybe, just maybe, some of you are definitely horny lying thieves. I mean, can we agree on that?
Okay. You know what? You're right. I think I can admit to that. Fine. I mean, that is, I guess, why we need the laws in the first place, right?
Oh, you need the laws because you can't control yourselves.
Yeah, we have no self-control. I thought that was obvious.
From abusing our mighty abilities.
Okay. No. I mean, fine. We're agreeing. Sure.
Perfect. Beautiful. That's good. And people say you've gotten too cynical.
I have. But this is good, too. This is good. This is a start.
Are we actually a team now? I don't think I've ever agreed with you on anything.
We are a team. In fact, let's have a drink. Let's toast to that, buddy. Let's do it.
Sure thing, boss. Wait. How can I trust you to not abuse my newfound awesome powers?
Of making drinks? I guess you can't be sure. Maybe you can cut me off. Just not this time.
I was like, did you not hear me say no? And he looked at me and he was like, yeah, I did. And I told him, I was like, well, if you care about me, why didn't you stop? And he was like, well, I couldn't. Like, I wanted that and I needed that.
All right, Grace. Grace, where are you from originally? Where did you grow up?
I grew up on an off-grid island in Washington. It's called Waldron. It's right on the border of Canada. But I was born in Seattle.
Okay. Tell me about your family growing up.
My mom was an international model in the 90s, and she met my dad, who was a drummer, and then my mom started a dance company in downtown Seattle, and then my dad got into construction, and so I was born, and it was cool to have parents like that. Like, they had all the stories, all the, the wild stuff, but then they raised me on the island, and it was mostly my mom that raised me. My dad was there for a bit, and he hated it, and so he moved back to Seattle. My mom and I stayed on the island, and it was great. It was probably the best childhood I think a kid could have off-grid. Like, I learned to drive at 9 and went to one-room schoolhouse with 14 kids, and yeah, really small. We had 40 people on the island, like, year-round, and then 200 in the summer. And just dirt roads, no gas station. It was like Gilligan's Island, but cold.
What a fun way to grow up.
It was amazing, like really, really amazing. So that's what my parents were like. I mean, yeah, my mom's badass, I'll tell you that.
Cool. And you graduate high school?
I did not.
You did not?
I did not. I was supposed to graduate during COVID. Actually, we moved back to Seattle with my dad, and then after that we moved to Port Orchard, Washington, on a farm where I had like horses and stuff, and COVID hit, and I was a very anxious kid. Like, going to school was really difficult for me. I have OCD, so like intrusive thoughts and all that. Like, I was always like, oh, my mom's gonna die, and I can't prevent it. So it was intense, and then we moved to the farm, and that was around high school time, and my parents were gonna get a divorce because it was pretty rough for a couple years with my dad since I was like 11. So for high school, sorry, I'm like all over the place. High school, I dropped out. I never went back. I just,
What did you want to do?
I wanted to be a drummer for my dad. My dad started teaching me when I was 6. Before we moved to the island, and after, he was a metal drummer, and so like the first song he taught me was New Millennium by Dream Theater, which was like not the song you teach a beginner. So I wanted to be a drummer. I was super conflicted. Like, I was super into screenwriting. I really wanted to be a filmmaker, and so I wrote 7 like full screenplays by the time I was 15, and I like worked with a couple of producers on those. But I always wanted to be a musician, and my dad supported the music, but he didn't support the screenwriting. And he was always telling me, he's like, you're gonna be on drugs and you're gonna die by the time you're 19. Like, don't start it. So I was like playing drums a little bit. During the time I would have been in high school, I just studied music. So I learned to play guitar and bass and like a little bit of keys. And then when I was 15, my dad left. It was like a long time coming. We didn't talk for a year. We were living in the same house. It got really bad. Like, cops were getting called. I had 3 restraining orders, and he finally left. long time. And after that, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be a drummer. Like, I don't need him, And so I joined a band 3 months after my dad left, and then I was like pretty much playing full time until a couple years ago. I got really lucky with that. Yeah.
And you stayed out of trouble with the drugs and all the things that you were.
I tried to. I did really good. There was an incident when I was 17. So I was 16 and I started playing in bands. When I was 17, I really needed an out, and is it okay if I go back a little bit?
Sure.
With my dad? There was a time, like, it got so bad with my dad because I was like supposed to be in therapy for OCD, And my dad was like just kind of crazy enough to where he would tell my therapist that anything I said about him wasn't true and it was all my mom. And so he's like, oh, if she's saying that I'm abusive, it's her mom. Like, I'd never hit her, I'd never tell her anything weird. And so he was going behind her back, and my therapist was trying to tell me that the reason I have OCD is my mom, and the reason that, you know, I'm like kind of like struggling with depression was my mom. And so she'd have me like write out these stories of my mom dying, and she'd be like, well, your dad thinks it's a good idea, so we need to listen to what your dad is saying, and write out these like car crashes. And she's like, I want you to read that every night before you go to bed. I want you to like really like face it. And it scared me as a kid. I was like, well, geez, like I was trying to tell her that the things that my dad was doing wasn't normal. Like, probably shouldn't take me on walks for 4 nights a week and tell me how he's like gonna divorce my mom and I'm gonna wake up in Montana with him and not know how I got there and never see my mom again. And so it kind of started with that. And then when I was 15, when we were living on the farm, I still wasn't talking to my dad. It started with him. Like, I came home one day and he would not talk to me. And I was like, what happened? Like, my dad and I were super close. Like, I thought he was like my best friend. I mean, I was scared of him. Like, I knew he'd go off any minute. And he definitely was a little crazy, but I loved him like he was my dad, you know? And I came home from Seattle and he wouldn't talk to me. And I would try to talk to him and he would just like look straight through me like I wasn't there. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Time would go on, and then he'd start knocking on my door in the middle of the night and be like, you know what you did. Like, you've been abusive to me since you were a kid. Like, you know why we're not talking. And so as a kid, I'm like, well, I don't know what happened. Like, we were cool one minute, now we're not. And I'm pretty sure my dad was super bipolar or something, because he could never keep a job. Like, it was always arguing with people. And so that started going on. And then I was really wanting to get into music, but at 15, I developed anorexia. And so I'm like almost 5'9", and I was 97 pounds. So I didn't have energy to like play drums. I was like just trying not to pass out, you know? And it got bad enough with my dad to where I thought he had a gun, and I was like, oh, he's just crazy enough, you know? Like, he always kind of talked about killing people that did him wrong. And I was like, oh, that might happen. Like, this is bad. And so I got tired of being locked in my room all the time. And so I moved out to the barn with my horse. And, you know, like, winters in Washington can be really hard because it's just rain for 9 months straight. And I started getting to a point where I was like, well, my dad doesn't love me anymore. I don't know what happened. My mom's great, but like, she's dealing with this whole divorce thing that's like, he was horribly abusive to her. And so I'm like, I'm letting her do her thing. And I started getting to a point where I was like, I need to leave. Like, I'm gonna go down a really bad path if I stay in Port Orchard. And tried to run away to Texas when I was 15. That didn't work out. And when it didn't work out, I was like, you know what? I had no life. I had never had friends. Like, I did not have any friends, especially during COVID. And I was like super sick with an eating disorder. And at that point, like, I can't even imagine what it felt like to be 15 again. But I was like, you know what? I think my life's done. Like, I don't wanna live anymore, you know? And so one night, like, in the barn, and it was cold. Like, living in a barn on the floor in the winter is not fun at 15. And I found a razor blade, and I was like, I'm done. Like, I got nothing. And it was intense. Like, it was a long time thinking about how I didn't want to live anymore. And so when I was 15, I had my first suicide attempt. I tried to slit my wrist in the barn, and I have a serious blood issue to where I can't, like I see blood and I pass out. I don't, and I don't know why I thought that was gonna work. I like got a little bit, I started bleeding and I just went into a panic attack. And I was like, well shit, I wanna die. Like I don't wanna be here anymore, but I can't do this. And so I went outside and I like laid in the field, and it was just that guilt, you know, like when you know you just tried something really, you shouldn't have done it. And I woke up the next day and it was like everything was normal, like still no dad. Like my mom would come in and hang out and we'd talk about everything, but I never told her. And like 2 months later, after I turned 16, right before my dad actually left, I tried again, it didn't work. And I was like, you know, like it's really hard to die. Like for me, it was just not working out. And
my dad was giving me a hard time about not watching the news enough, so naturally I gave him a hard time right back. I told him most of what we're shown is designed to alarm.
And then I got into the bands, and I was like, oh, I think this is what I'm meant to do. Like I was so full of life for the first time. Like I got into recovery for anorexia. I was like healthy, didn't even consider going back. I was just like, music is where it's at, you know, and like how far can I go? And like how can I really have that dream of like being a successful drummer? And so fast forward like a year, I was practicing 10 hours a day, just, you know, still wasn't going to school. I'm like, just gonna be a drummer. And I got really good. And I got an opportunity from my bandmate's friend. He was looking for a drummer in Sacramento. And I was 17, I was almost 18, I was like 3 months away from my birthday. He seemed like he had a really promising career. And I was like, you know what? This is perfect. Like I've always loved California, always knew I was gonna live in California. To me, I was like, okay, this is just like the universe. Like this is a manifest, like this is great. And so I was 17 and he was 25. And looking back, I should have known that.
Looking back, you should have, yeah.
Today we're investigating
AI. Skip it. I didn't press.
This is perfect. Like I've always loved California, always knew I was gonna live in California. To me, I was like, okay, this is just like the universe. Like this is a manifest. Like this is great. And so I was 17 and he was 25. And looking back, I should have known that wasn't gonna go good. I was hitting me up all the time, like, oh, I really want a drummer. I really need a young drummer. I think a girl drummer would be great. Like, you know, you seem really enthusiastic about it. This would be a perfect fit. And so we had a show booked for it was April 22nd, so it was 2 days after my birthday. And it was my 18th birthday, and he told me, he's like, I'm gonna fly out. And I'd met him a couple times, and he was always super cool. And he's like, I'm gonna fly out, and we're gonna do this show. If the show goes well, you'll move to Sacramento. We'll like get you out there, we'll get you a bunch of gigs, you'll get a bunch of tours and big shows and all this promising stuff. And we did have a good show, like it was with the bass player of Heart. And so to me, I was like, oh my God, I'm almost 18, like I get to play with these really good musicians, this is gonna be amazing. And I was still super messed up about my dad, because once my dad was gone, like we never talked again. I still have not talked to my dad. It's been 5
me neither.
5 years. Our little was gone, like we never talked again. I still have not talked to my dad. It's been 5 years. Or a little over that, I think.
Wait till it's 25.
So the show was booked and he was gonna fly out, and he told me, he's like, well, you know, you're my best friend, like I'm gonna fly out a little bit earlier, celebrate your birthday with you, like 18's a big one, right? And don't know why a 25-year-old would want to be really best friends with a 17-year-old. At that time, I'm like, ooh, starting to see through some stuff, but I didn't know, and I was so, I think, easily I just wanted a family so bad, and my dad left, so I was like, it was my mom and I was just like, kind of like still figuring out how to heal myself from the trauma of my dad and my childhood, but also of like having 2 suicide attempts, and I got pretty close. It didn't work, and like I kind of just like wanted like a family, you know, like in my head I was like, well, if I had a family, I wouldn't have tried to do that to myself. I wouldn't have like gotten super sick. Like, you know, this is perfect. Like, this family seems to love me. So, and I trusted him. And so he flew out, and we were hanging out listening to vinyls because I had like a stack of vinyls. So just vintage, like Queen and Zeppelin and blues. And he was like, oh, we're gonna listen to vinyls. Like, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be really fun. It was the night before my birthday.
Shaw rape.
And
the night before your birthday.
And we had a great time. Like, we were just hanging out. He was innocent. He was weird. And then he like, I was sitting on the ground, and he like held me down, and I couldn't figure out what was going on. And I was like, what are you doing? You know? And like that heart racing started happening because I'm like, uh-oh. The energy just changed, and something's not right now. And he goes, well, he looks at the phone, and it was 11:55 p.m. And he was like, well, I can't wait any longer. And in my head, I was like, oh shit. Like, uh-oh. I trusted him. He wasn't weird. And now he's like holding my shoulders down. And he was sitting on my bed. And I remember he started taking his pants off, and I was like, oh no. Like, this is really bad. And I started going into like kind of fight or flight, and instead of fight or flight, I went freeze and didn't know what to do, and I kept trying to get up, and he kept pushing me down, and he kept telling me how much he was like essentially gonna have me give him a blowjob, and I was like, no. And I kept telling him that, and I like pushed him, and I kept saying no. I was like, I'm gonna go upstairs. And he's like, well, you can't go upstairs if you can't get up. And he just held me down, and I was like, oh, no. And I can't even like remember. I would have done things so differently now, but then I was just so like innocent, you know. I'd never had a boyfriend, never, like, wasn't even around boys because I was.
It reminds me of Evan Rachel Wood. They go around Marilyn Manson expecting something other than a complete rapist, essentially. And I'm sorry, but this is the LA rock scene, and you went around dudes. Dudes in any rock scene are a piece of shit. I know, because I was in the punk rock scene for a while. It's new to you because you went way past it. And then you're surprised when the people, I guess I'm victim shaming, that's not my intention here. It's just like, I don't go around the LA punker or rocker scene not expecting some dudes lusting after young girls, you know? Is that weird to... Maybe I'm just from Denver where we have more common sense, but I don't go around LA dudes not expecting scumbags. Is that weird? Where was your father? She already talked about him. He was construction drummer, you know?
So isolated as a kid. And so that happened. I remember even like clenching my jaw down, and he was like sticking his finger in my mouth trying to get me to open my mouth. And when that was going on, I was like, I think I just checked out. Like, I think I just checked out while that was going on because I didn't know what to do. But then I also thought about like, well, I can't lose this opportunity to go to California because I can't stay in Washington.
Yes, you can.
You know? And
Yes,
it was
you can.
so intense, and I think I just blacked it out. And after that was done, like, I thought that was it. And then he like grabbed me and like put me on my bed. And then I was like, oh no, it's gonna get worse. Like, I thought that was it. And I kept telling him, like, no. And I was, like, trying to, like, kick him off me. And he was just stronger than me. Like, I couldn't get out. And I wanted to, like, yell for my mom because she was upstairs asleep. But there was that, like, almost that sense of shame where I'm like, oh no, like, now my pants are off. I couldn't have even stopped you from taking off my pants because you got my arms down, you know? And then there was that sense of shame, like, well, what would my mom think if she knew that just happened? And he kept telling me, like, you want this. And in my head, I'm like, I've told you no, like, 12 times. I keep telling you to get off. And I think I, like, really blacked out when that was really going on because I kept saying no. And I was like, stop, like, that. It hurts. I've never done that before, you know? And he told me, he grabbed me by the throat and he held me down and then he whispered in my ear and he was like, I want you to tell me you love me more than your father. And I'm like, oh God, like, the last thing I want to think about is your dad when there's a dude that's like assaulting you, you know? And he just put his hand over my mouth and just like, just strangled me as hard as he could. And I remember I felt everything. It was awful. And then it happened. And then, and at that point I was 18. Like 5 minutes had gone by, I was 18 at that point. So it wasn't illegal, you know? And he sat up and he started bawling. Like never seen someone cry like that. And I sat there and he was like, I just remember him saying, oh no. And this guy was super religious, like super Christian, very, like,
oh, I hit him too.
I don't know, weird Christian, like a little too into that, you know? Like I know people who are Christians and they're really cool. He was like almost using that as an excuse, like, well, God will forgive me, you know? And I told him, I was like, did you not hear me say no? And he looked at me, he was like, yeah, I did. And I told him, I was like, well, if you care about me, why didn't you stop? And he was like, well, I couldn't. Like, I wanted that, and I needed that. And I just didn't know what to do. Like, I was so numb in that moment. Like, I've never had that happen. No, I've never, at that time, was like never intimate with anyone, never even kissed anyone yet. I was like 17, you know? Just was very focused on like music and trying to have a good future, and all this weird stuff started happening. And, yeah, I didn't understand what that was because I just didn't know. Like, I knew people who
fucking
like
jackass fucking died, too. 3 seconds later, you fucking piece of shit, cocksucker, loser, fuck you! Wasted both of our fucking times, asshole.
They got molested or they got raped or whatever, and I was like, well, that never happened to me. Like, I don't understand. And it started to like set in a little later, you know, when I went to bed that night, and I was like, I woke up and everything just hurt. Like, I'd wake up and we had the show like 2 days later, I think the day later. And I was just trying to get myself in this, like, don't pay attention to what just happened. You have to focus on the show, and once we get the show done, then we can deal with that shit later. And then if he wants me to still move to California, then I'll have to make up my mind then. So we played the show, went fine. I was super nervous. Like, I didn't play great that night. I was trying to focus on the song, but I was like, something's wrong. Like, something just happened, and something bad happened. And in my head, I was like, I think that might be the worst thing that's happened. I was so, like, I just started feeling so dirty and so gross and everything. And he flew back to California and called me and was like, you know, I want you in the band, and it's gonna be great. Yeah, it's gonna be great. And you're gonna get so many shows, and you're gonna just, like, we're gonna go on tour, and it's gonna be amazing. And my mom still didn't know anything. And I know she started noticing I was acting funny. Like, I was really weird if she wanted to hug me. I was super, like, in my head, and I got that OCD, so I was like, oh, she's gonna think I'm dirty. Like, that's gross. So I like kind of wasn't super comfortable being close to her. And then I found out that like my dad was, who I hadn't talked to in a couple months at that point, he would just start showing up like around my neighborhood. And we live in the middle of nowhere in Washington, like dead end farm. And these trucks would start pulling up. And I later found out like I got really good at stalking where my dad lived, like, you know, whatever the people search, whatever. Found out that those were the cars that were his roommates' cars. And so he was taking his roommates' cars and like driving around. I was in the woods one night with my mom and a flashlight started shining through the woods. And so in my head in that moment, like I was sitting outside after he called me about joining the band and I was like, well, my dad's kind of stalking. This guy just like assaulted me. I have no good options right now. Like there's a fork in the road and it's gonna go really bad. And I've always struggled with depression since I was really young. And that was the first time like I stopped feeling really optimistic about the world. Like I was in a band and it was fun and I was like, oh, this is what life is gonna be like when I'm older. And that creeping, I don't want to be here anymore started coming back in because I was like, I don't think I have a good choice right now. And I had never drank, I had never done drugs, I'd never smoked, nothing. And I got so like low because I started Googling like what is sexual assault? Like did that really happen to me? Like he was my friend. I was trying to like find ways to tell myself like, no, that was my fault. I could have prevented that. Like, I mean, I could have prevented not having him come out, but like I didn't understand that. I didn't know that was possible yet. And I started like really researching and started realizing like, oh, that's what happened. Like that was intense. That was scary. And I just hit bottom for a bit. And I was telling my mom, I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to join this band, and I was lying. I was like, I'm just nervous. Like, maybe I don't want to be a drummer. I don't know. But then I was like, but I can't stay here because she's seen me just hit the ground in Washington. And she found out later on about, like, I told her, I was like, Mom, I tried to kill myself twice, you know. And she found out about that and was like, oh, we got to go to California. Like, this would be great. And in my head, I was like, I'm gonna try one more time. One more time. Like if I die, then that solves my problems. And if I don't, then I have to go to California. I don't know why that was like the right thing in my head. And so I, through a friend, got a bottle of vodka and it was Pink Whitney. I had a big old bottle of that.
I had two balloons!
Never drank in my life, was in the barn.
What are you
drank
talking about?
The whole thing, I had like a quarter left, and I took a bunch of pills. And I was
Piece
just
of
praying.
shit,
I was like,
cocksucker!
this is it.
Brain
And I
dead
had never been drunk
developer!
before. So
Fuck you,
that
cocksucker!
feeling, and
Fuck
especially
you.
that much, having never drank before, hit me hard. Blacked out. Don't remember anything. Woke up the next day, throwing up, like shaking, just full on cold sweats. And I woke up and it was that sinking feeling again, like, oh shit, like this guilt. And I'm not gonna get into too much about that, but I ended up moving to California for the band. Never played a show with him. Never played a show with him.
You kind of seem like a loser to me. Not because of what happened to you, but how foolhardy you seem to be. That's weird to say to a girl.
With him. Moved out.
Do you think his real motive was just to get you in?
You're like a rude.
Yeah. In bed.
Yeah. He would tell me, he's like, he straight up told me one day, because I got kind of mad. I was like, hey, it even got to a point where like we raised money for the band to get me out there for your band, and you're not having me play with you, and you're not even letting me like he'd let me now and then play one song, and I'm like, this is weird, but he would post me all the time, and he was like, well, you're gonna be my stage girlfriend so that guys don't hurt you. so that when you're at a show, you can say, "This is my boyfriend." You
Guys are
know,
embarrassing.
it's embarrassing, yeah. And I told him, I was like, "Well, I'm playing with other people then, like, whatever, do your thing, dude. I'm out. I'm done." And I got really mad about that, and so I joined another band, and his mother came up to me, and I was freshly 18, a couple months after turning 18. And she said I was a whore that nobody's son would ever love because my own father couldn't even love me.
His mother?
His mother told me that.
Told you that?
Yeah, yeah. And, yeah. And,
It's hard being an attractive female, isn't it?
Sucks. I don't even think I'm attractive. I'm like, I just have a bunch of tattoos and that's it. But, yeah, and after that, I got to play in a lot of really good bands. I left that band, that situation, and I was so happy. Like, my friend, like, it almost makes me emotional talking about her because she has picked me up so many times when I was so low. Her name's Haley, and she just has seen right through everything I've been through, and it's weird.
That's great.
It's amazing, yeah. Like, she got me booked for shows. I played shows with her. She had a Harley, and I'd never met a woman that rode a Harley before. And in my head, I was like, I want to be her. Like, she's cool. And she got me shows, and I was playing shows. And, you know, I was making money playing shows. I was a drummer. I was like actually busy with that, and I was happy. Like, for the first time, I was so happy. Just loved everything. Like, I even got to the point where I was like, you know what? I'm thankful for my dad, because if he didn't leave, I wouldn't be here. Like, I'd still be somehow on the farm with him, just trying to do whatever he wanted me to do for him to love me, you know?
Why would you fire,
and,
you piece of shit cocksucker?
and I missed him so
It's a
bad.
gun,
In my head, I
pull
was
the
like, oh,
trigger. Who
I
cares
only
if I'm
shows, like, he'd be
bolting?
so
Pull the
proud, you
trigger.
know? But I got to, like, I got to do some of that for him in a sense of, like, I think I'd make him proud, but I can't be around him. Like, it's not healthy for me to be around my dad, but I can still be grateful for what he taught me, which was drums. And so then I was 19 at this point, and I'd just gotten my first Harley. I was working at Harley-Davidson in Rockland, California. Best job I've ever had. I was like, I'm gonna work part-time here and play shows, and this is great. Like, I'm gonna, you know, I started, sorry, I'm again, like, all over the place. I started playing a lot of biker bars, and I had such a, I just felt so at home there. Like, all of these really tough guys, you walk into the room, and I'd never been around bikers in my life, like, didn't even know people with tattoos, and I'd go into that room and be like, whoa, this is a tough crowd. And they just like took me under their wing, and I started feeling like the family that I wanted so bad.
Bikers.
It's not
Bikers will totally help the situation.
blood family. It's like the people that I'm meeting at shows that are like showing up for me in ways that my dad didn't even do. Like, these are people I still talk to, and they started like encouraging me. They're like, hey, Rockland's hiring, like, you should go get a job there, and then you'll get a bike. And my mom was like, no, you can work there, you're not getting a motorcycle. Got a motorcycle, I think, like 2 months after I worked there. I got it was an 05 Softail Deuce, which is, it's like not a beginner bike. I just like the look of it, and I was like, I'll figure it out. Learned how to ride, and it was great. Like, I started feeling so, I had like a sense of confidence that I didn't really have before. And, you know, like, I used to ride horses a lot and do the jumping and everything, and when I got out of that, I was like, there was still that sense of adrenaline that I was missing. Like, oh, there's something about motorcycles. Got my bike, and I was talking to my mom, and she was like, how would you feel about going back to Washington just for a little bit? Like, just, you know, 6 months, maybe a year, just see where it goes. You'll get to practice anytime. You don't have to, like, pay for rehearsal studios. And I was like, yeah, this is a great time. Like, let's go back to Washington. Let's go back to the farm. And kind of thinking that I was in a good enough place. Like, I got a Harley now. I really worked through a lot of my stuff with my dad. Never touched on the assault. Never touched on that. Just blacked it out. And so, I was a little too happy. Like, I was in a little too good of a place at that time. Everything was working out too good. And my best friend, who, again, should have known, like, older musicians that are hanging out with the 18-year-olds aren't always pure of intention. He was 35, and he was a really good friend of mine. He was, like, mentored me with music and helped me out, and just really, in my mind, I was like, this is great, you know? I have another musician who's way better than me, who's, like, coaching me. And I had told him that it was my last show before I was moving back to Washington, and I was gonna be gone for a bit. Like, I'll miss you guys, you know, I want to play one more show. And so he said, he's like, oh, let's do a show, like, come play with us. And we played a venue that I always wanted to play, and it was at that time probably the best show I ever played. And at the show, I had a really young drum student, because I was teaching at that point, and I had a really young drum student who I just adored, was there right next to me, and my friend comes up, and he, like, put his hand between my legs and, like, picked me up. I was like, whoa, no. So I pushed him off. I was like, fuck you, dude. And he grabbed me and, like, wrestled me to the floor in a sold out venue. And my drum student's right there, who's a child, you know? And I was pissed. I was like, hey, don't do that again. And I was trying to play it off, like, to not freak the kid out that he just dropped me. Oh, you know, he's just my really good friend. We're just like that. And I started getting that sense of, like, this isn't right. This isn't right. And he knows I'm leaving. He knows he's probably not going to see me again for a long time. And so the show ended, and we went to hang out at my house. And it was normal. Like, we were watching movies, we were chilling, we were talking about, I was moving and he was moving, and we were just talking about music and having this really deep conversation. And
Same guy.
Different guy.
Oh, different guy.
Different guy. This one had serious drug problems. Like, always told me, oh, I'm clean right now. Don't worry, I'm clean. I'm not on drugs. Heroin, like, past of just nothing but heroin, and I don't know if you ever got into meth, but chance. And a lot of coke. Like, I've seen, since I was 18, like, I've seen so many drugs just in green rooms. Like, it was normal. I was like, I'm good. I don't want to, I never really drank much. I kind of went through phases a little bit, but I was always kind of had my head on straight. And so we're sitting on the couch. It was like 4 a.m. And we were leaving. I was leaving in a couple of days, and I couldn't figure out why my dog wasn't in the room. And we're in the living room, and my dog is everywhere. Like, I have a big German Shepherd, Freddie. Like, she is where I am all the time. I was, like, looking around, like, she's not. I don't know where she went. Like, he got up to go to the bathroom, came back. My dog. I don't know where my dog went. And he closed her in my room. I found that out later. And we're watching the movie, and he pulled me closer, and I remember he tried to kiss me, and I was like, dude, no, I don't do that with bandmates, like, no. And I got that heart race. I was like, oh shit, like, uh-oh. I've already kind of blacked out what happened when I was 17. I don't know where this is gonna go. And so I told him no, and I was like, dude, I'm not having sex with you. I don't want to do that. And he full fist just socked me in the jaw. And I still, like, I have to crack my jaw all the time now because I think he hit it so hard, it, like, I don't know if it dislocated it or broke it or what, but I'm always moving my jaw. Not drugs. I can't, it's messed up. And he punched me in the jaw and like my ear started ringing and I felt it, I heard it just pop. And I was like, oh my God, you know? And when I went to like sit up to like, I don't know why I thought I was gonna fight him. I was like so upset about that. I went to like kind of lunge at him, and just like when I was 17 by the other guy, he grabbed me by the throat and just held me on the couch. And I was looking at him, and he just, both hands kept squeezing. And at that point, you're like, oh, this is getting serious. Like, the last guy didn't do it that hard. This is like, I'm not seeing anymore, you know? And I pass out, and I wake up. I opened my eyes, and he was on top of me, and my clothes were off, and I just, I opened my eyes and he was inside me essentially. And I like couldn't imagine, like, I don't know how that happened. I passed out, and 2 minutes later, you got what you wanted. And then I opened my eyes, and just one more time, slap across the face, strangled me. And I wake up, and I was in my bed, and my dog was in my room laying on me, and it was too peaceful. You know, like you wake up and the birds are outside, it's sunny, it's warm, you're like, it's too perfect, but something doesn't feel right. And so I went to the bathroom, and I look in the mirror, and my whole throat was just like purple. It was just fingerprints and just a bruise. And so I like walked out to the living room. He was making coffee, and I was like, do you see this? Like, do you see that, like, can you admit what just happened? Like, I don't understand. And he looked at me and he was like, what bruises on your neck? Like, I don't see anything. And I was like, they're there, and everything's like swollen and it hurts. Like, how do you know? Like, I had a big bruise on my chest, like down here. And he was like, you're making it up. And in my head, I went right back to being 7 years old, or like, you know, a kid, when I was telling my dad, like, Dad, I don't understand why my therapist is like telling me it's my mom, like, what's going on? And he told me, oh, you're making it up. And then when I was older, and when he wasn't talking to me, I asked him, I was like, why won't you talk to me? And he like, why can't you love me, Dad? Like, I remember having that conversation, and he'd look at me in the eye and be like, you're making it up, like, you know what you did. And so in that moment in my kitchen with the bruises on my throat, I felt like it was my dad telling me again, like, you're making it up, that didn't happen. And I knew what happened, like, there's proof this time, like, it's visible. And I was like, how do I not tell my mom? Like, how does my mom not find out? She can't know about this. And I was, you know, I had my Harley, and so I'd always ride with a bandana around my nose underneath my helmet so my visor wouldn't fog up. So I was like, I'm just gonna wear a bandana, like, really tight around my neck for a while, and she'll never know. She'll think it's like a little style preference. And that, I couldn't black it out for too long. Like, that one was a little too invasive, and not being conscious for any of that really messed me up down the road. Like, I dropped him off at the band's house, and I was like, we're done, dude. Like, I'm not gonna see you ever again. And he got mad at me, and he was like, I don't know what your problem is. Like, you're making shit up. There's nothing on your neck, you know? And I don't know why I never pressed charges. I think I was too scared that no one would believe it. Like, I'd never talked about it, and no one knew at that point. And my mom and I moved back to Washington, and I started really going downhill. Like, I bought an RV and put it on my mom's property because I was like, I'm living in my own place, you know. I can't deal with people. And And I started becoming like a really just angry person, like really quick to just snap. And especially if men were talking to me, I would just right down their throat. Like,
Yeah, do you have any trust or any ability to trust men? Given all the things you've been through?
There was one guy that I did trust. I don't know why. I think like with assault, I think it either makes people like hypersexual or not at all. And I am like not at all. And I never thought that I would ever let myself get close to anyone. Especially like a man to be, in my head I was like, I'll never be intimate with someone, I'll never trust someone. I don't even think I have the side of me to be really caring and sensitive, like with a boyfriend. Like I don't think I could have that. And I met this guy right before I went on tour. I was 19, and this was 4 months after the the rape, essentially.
The second one.
Yeah, the second one. And thankfully the last one.
What? I had it for 300. Oh no.
And I don't even remember like how we met.
Oh, thank God.
We met, and he was like 2 years older than me. And he was like, oh, we should hang out. Like, we should go hang out. And in my head, I was like, no. Didn't even know what this guy looked like. And there was a weird part of me that knew that, like, I was leaving for Nashville in 2 weeks. I was like, you know what? We have a lot of mutual friends. I'll hang out with him once. Why not? And so he picks me up. Which I'm like, why did... I went from, like, can't trust anyone to, like, suddenly I feel like I need to go meet this person. No clue why. And I was like, I'm gonna be nice, like, I gotta chill, like, it doesn't mean he's gonna hurt me. And we got in the car, and we went on a hike, and he was the nicest person I'd ever met. Like, didn't make a move on me, wasn't weird, he dropped me off at a normal time. And it stuck out, what stuck out to me so much was that playing a bunch of shows and, like, being in the rock scene especially, the only attention I got from men was always like, oh, let me take you home. Like, you know, yeah, you wear leather pants. Like, I know what you want, you know? And they'd just tell me these nasty things. I'd never gotten a genuine compliment from a guy ever at that point. Like, no guy ever called me pretty. It was always like, oh, you should come home with me. Like, you know, they called me hot. They never said, oh, you're like, you seem really sweet. You know, like, I want to get to know you. It was never that. And it was just the crowd, I think. And he texted me after he dropped me off, and he said, you know, he was like, well, I had fun. Like, we'll have to do this again when you get back. And he said, you have really pretty eyes and a really nice smile. And he was like, I love your freckles. And in my head, I was like, whoa, that's weird. Like, no one's ever said that to me, and they've never been like gentle with me ever. And so I went on tour right after that in Nashville. I played with great musicians. Like, they were the sweetest people. I hate to say that I didn't trust them, but I didn't. You know, I was like, oh, I know how bands work. Like, after that incident, I can't trust these guys. But they were so sweet, and I started realizing that I haven't handled any of my shit. Like, I've never worked on my trauma. I've never been accountable for the fact that, not accountable, like I've never gotten help for the fact that I got raped as a kid, you know, as a teenager. And it started like, you know, I had the mentality like, I'll just run away from my problems and they won't catch up to me because I'll just keep running, and they catch up to you regardless. And I played not great at that tour. My head wasn't in it. I wanted to go home. I wanted to be with my dog. I wanted my bike. I was like, I'm done. I can't do music anymore. And I had kept a little bit in touch with that guy because it was weird. Like, other guys would hit me up and I'd just start feeling gross. I just had that, like, you don't know what happened. Trust me, you don't want me. I'm really, like, dirty. Like, there was a dirty feeling I had. And then when he would text me, there was, like, it was weird. I was like, a side of myself that I've never seen would come out. And I was like, I really care about this guy. Like, I really care about him.
11 down, 3 up. Wish me luck. I need to pay attention to what's happening. I want more health. I don't think I'm gonna find it, but I wanna look. Oh yeah! I fucking got him. Oh yeah, I fucking got him. Good fight. Yeah. The more I drink, I've drank 4 of these 11% beers. I've drank 4 of these. You understand? 4 tall boys of 11% beers, and I still pull a victory royale. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Let's go to Overwatch. I'm just gonna leave. I'm gonna leave with my win. Goodbye. Goodbye. It was good. It was real good.
So I moved back to Washington. He was still in California, and I went downhill really bad. Like, I was drinking the moment I woke up till I went to bed, couldn't stop at all. Like, my mom started realizing, she's like, hey, you smell like alcohol, and I'd get defensive. I was like, geez, Mom, like, it's not alcohol, you know? So many bottles in my little trailer. I was just downhill. And in my mind, I was like, I am taking like an hour shower a day of just scrubbing myself. Like, something's not right. And I finally told my mom, because I told her, I was like, I'm going downhill, like something's wrong. And she knew, she could just pick up on it. And I told her, I was like, Mom, when I was 17 this happened, and when I was 19 this happened. Why they both chose to just strangle me, I don't know. But I was like, I hate my neck. Like, I can't look in the mirror and not see the bruises still. Like, that's why I have my throat tattooed. Like, I don't see it anymore. Like, I have something cool there now. And she believed it. And in my head, I was like, whoa, maybe that isn't. Like, maybe that was serious. Maybe that is why I'm, like, no longer playing music. And dogs. I'm just finding any way to self-destruct.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was a really intense time, because, you know, like, I at that point I was like addicted with alcohol. I was like, this makes me not think about that, and when I'm sober, it's all I think about.
And plus, you were a teenager when this happened.
Yeah, I had a really good friend that was 21, and so alcohol and cigarettes, I'd be like, come on, dude, let's have fun. Like, we'll just have fun. And she just got broken up with, so it was like perfect. You know, I had just turned 20 when I was like really, really in a low point. And I told my mom, I was like, you know what? I think I need to move back to California. I think I need to go where it's sunny. I can ride my bike anytime. Like, I'm in a place where I need to start doing some internal work. Like, I think if I don't fix my stuff, I'm gonna end up just like my dad, and I'm gonna let it get the best of me, and it's gonna just eat me alive slowly, you know? And I was like, I don't want to be this way. Like, I'm becoming a really aggressive person. Like, people are coming up to me, and I'm really standoffish. And I was like, I think I need to do some like work, and saved up my money, went to Washington or California, and sold. Well, I had my Harley up for sale, didn't have a lot of money. I was like, maybe if I sell my bike, like, you know, I took a car to Washington or to California. I kept my bike in Washington. I was gonna get it later, and I bought a brand new Harley, and I was like financed it, and I was like, this is gonna solve my problems. Like, this is great. I'm gonna ride and I'm gonna fix my stuff. And I started riding 160 miles every single day. I was working like part-time, and I was really just like, I'm here because I need to heal my trauma finally and not look at it like a bad thing. Like, oh, everyone's trying to heal their trauma. Like, I didn't have that bad of a life, you know? And I just rode all day, like all day till nighttime. If no one else was home where I was living, I would ride I'd ride from like outside of Sacramento. I lived in Lincoln, from Lincoln all the way to Reno, and then just ride back. Like, I was 20, so I couldn't go into bars, which was helpful. So I just turn around under the sign and then ride back. And it was like, I was processing things on every ride. Like, every time I would like fill up my gas tank. I'm like, okay, that was 160 miles. I can go home now. And I would journal. Like, I would just write down really everything I learned and like the people that I met. And I reconnected with the guy that I met, who I went on a hike with. And it was funny because in my head I was like, never gonna be intimate with anybody, right? I had that intention. I can't even remember how it happened, but he invited me over and he's like, oh, you want to spend the night? And I was like, yeah. Yeah, I like this guy, you know? We spent the night together. That was the first person that I slept with that I wanted to ever. And I felt comfortable with him, you know? Like,
Love is good.
I fell asleep next to him and I woke up. And I wasn't scared. I wasn't like looking at him thinking that, oh, he's gonna know. Like, there's this, I'm like, he doesn't want to get close to me. I'm so messed up.
He didn't approach you like a creep like the other guys.
He didn't. Yeah, like the first person. And so we talked later, and he was like, oh, I'm not looking for a relationship. Like, I'm good. And I was like, me neither. Oh man, I was so like, I wasn't hurt, but I was like, oh no. Like, at that point I was like, oh no, I just slept with this dude, and now, you know, now we're probably never gonna talk again. And we stayed like friends. But it was just funny where I was like, you know what? Thank God. Like, thank God he didn't want a relationship. Now I can focus on my healing journey, right? And I really was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna heal my stuff. And the second guy reached out to me, and he was telling me, he's like, hey, we're gonna be in town, let's hang out, like, come on, this is gonna be fun. Like, I don't know why you're being so weird with me. And I told him, I was like, dude, I don't want to see you ever again. Like, I'm starting to realize that, like, the way I'm acting towards people and I just feel dirty all the time, and that's not gonna change, you know. And I told him, and that was that. And I was gonna keep moving on. And instead of going like on my little journey to, you know, get sober and everything, I went straight back to alcohol. And I started hanging out at biker bars and sneaking in and going home and just getting messed up. And I started getting really resentful towards the first guy, because I started realizing, like, I was like kind of teaching again a little bit with drums, and I started working with young kids and realizing, like, some of my students had the same age gap that I had with him. And I'm like, this is a kid. Like, how can you have that big of an age gap, know they're underage, like, a lot, and still just go for it, you know? And I started getting really resentful, and I was hanging out with a lot of people that went to prison and got out of it, and they were sharing so many incredible stories. And I was like, part of me was healing, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna better myself. And then the self-destructive side was like, no, I'm gonna get in a fight with this dude and I'm gonna win this time. And a friend of mine gave me brass knuckles, and I was just like, I think I got harsher than I've ever been. And I had those in my pocket. I didn't know they were illegal at the time. Had them in my pocket, and I was like, oh, if I see him, I'm gonna go to one of his shows. And I want to scare him. Like, I want to freak him out. He was really, like, at that point, I had gotten, like, I was riding a bunch, so I was like, oh, I have a little bit of muscle, and he doesn't. Like, I think this could work out this time. I could probably try to fight him. And at that point, I'd gotten in a couple fights, and I was getting a little scrappy. And, but those brass knuckles, I was like, oh, I finally feel safe, too. Like, I'm riding 100 miles a day. This is the only thing I have to protect myself. And I was really aggressive, like really aggressive. I showed up to my friend's court date on my bike, and this lawyer guy, I think he was a lawyer, he kind of gave that off, looked at me on the bike, and I didn't have a lot of tattoos. I think I had a full sleeve at the time. And he said to his buddy right when I took my helmet off, he goes, "That's the kind of girl I'd cheat on my wife with." And I'm not argumentative. I don't like arguing with people, and I just ripped him a new one. And I rode home. I didn't even go to my friend's court. I rode home, and I was like, oh shit, like I'm starting to spiral. I think I need to fix my stuff. And probably smelled like alcohol all the time. But that was just my only comfort, because I wouldn't feel anything when I was drinking. And it was daytime, and this was like months this was going on at this point. I was riding in Reno, and a cop lit me up behind me, and I was like at the light where I could get between the cars and lane split and get on the freeway. And I had just gotten this bike, so I didn't have plates yet. And so I had no plates, no motorcycle license, and brass knuckles. And in my head, I was like, oh God, now I know this is gonna go really bad. You know, I heard the siren, and I lane split, and I ripped it to get on the freeway. And I've never ridden that fast in my life going back to Sacramento. And I pulled off on a side road, and in the middle of nowhere, like, I don't even know, probably like Grass Valley or something. Pulled off on a side road, got off my bike, and I just laid flat on the ground. And it was hot. It was hot as hell outside. And I took my helmet off, and the adrenaline, like I was shaking. I was like, oh my God, I just ran from the cops. This is not good. And I laid on the ground, and you know that nostalgic smell, like a nostalgic summer smell, like the pavement and the sweetgrass. And I sat up, and I imagined like telling like a 4-year-old me, like, you know, when you're 4 or you're just a young kid, you have so many big dreams, and you have so much, like, you want to do good for the world, and you know, you're a kid. And I imagine telling like the 4-year-old self, you know, everything you wanted to accomplish isn't gonna happen. And not only are you like an alcoholic, you're probably gonna go to jail. Like, probably gonna end up with a felony within the year if you keep going down the path you're gonna go down.
At the age of 25.
And I, like, that really hit me, and I don't know why that just made me question my actions, because a couple weeks before that, I think I can say it, I had an opportunity to start running drugs, and I would get paid for it. And a part of me was like, yeah, that's a dream job. Are you kidding? Like, I get to ride my motorcycle and get paid. Like, that's fine. And I had no sense of like respect for authority. I was like, I'm hurt. People have done nothing but hurt me. Screw it. You know, like, my life's probably gonna end up in jail anyways. And I had that like epiphany of talking to like my younger self, and just imagining like telling that to a 4-year-old. Like, that would be crushing as a kid to hear that. Like, oh, had all these big dreams, and now I'm probably gonna end up in prison. And I got back on my bike. I returned the brass knuckles. I was like, I don't want these. can't do it. And I told my friend, I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't start running drugs, because if I do it once, I'm gonna do it again, and that's gonna be my life, and I'm gonna get caught. I don't know why I think I would get away with it. And I had an old biker guy come up to me, and he was telling me, he was like, "You're better than that." And he was like, "You're better than this. Like, you know, he was just telling me, he's like, you have a choice. And he was telling me how he went to prison for 18 years and got out, and he's like, it's not what you think. Like, it's not gonna solve your problems. And I told him, I was like, at this point, I feel like it will. Like, I feel like if I do go to jail, it might get my head on straight, because I don't know where to go. Like, I don't play music. I didn't graduate high school. Like, I got no education. I don't know what to do. And we just had this long conversation, and he told me, he's like, you need to leave. Like, you need to get out of town. You need to get rid of all of your friends that are doing drugs and drinking and start over, you know? And I moved to Washington, back in with my mom, probably 2 weeks later. It was in October, and I, on my Harley and a hoodie and jeans, rode in a hailstorm from Sacramento to Washington. And for a year and a half after that, I never drank. And I started writing a book, and like was reading the 4 agreements every day, and just like watching documentaries and watching a lot of your interviews too, like really actually finally doing work on myself. And
What did watching my videos do for you?
It gave me a sense of, like, I'm trying to think, like, I watched the interview with Jason. I'm trying to think of his last name. It was about assault. He had a lot of tattoos. That was like the most profound interview I've seen. And I saw that, and that made me realize, like, maybe if I told people, like, what happened, and that, like, you know, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to get over rape and, like, child abuse too, like when you're a kid. And watching that interview, I hadn't cried in years, and I sat there and I was like, whoa, that's intense. It was so profound. And it made me feel so much lighter about things, where I was like, okay, I'm not the only one who feels this way. Like, I'm not the only one that this has happened to. A million people experience this, and sometimes it's really hard to wake up with yourself and try to do better when you're like, yeah, but I feel gross. Like, I don't like this. And yeah, like I remember I was watching those. I was reading just a lot of self-help books, and I remember well, me going back and forth again, right before I moved back to Washington. This was like the next day from when I ran from the cops, and I was like on this new journey to be like, I'm gonna stop drinking, I'm gonna leave all my friends, and I'm gonna get on the right path, because it will bite me in the ass later. I did one more run to Reno just for my little usual 2 a.m. ride. Could not sleep, because I knew that there was a change coming. I was gonna go back to Washington. I was like starting to feel light again, like, okay, I think I can do better for myself. Like, I think I'm really fucking up right now. And I rode all night to Reno, came back the next, like, 4 a.m. I think I left around 2. Did my usual ride, was riding back, and I just imagined, like, instead of being so resentful towards my dad, who was really like that first heartbreak, how can I, instead of being angry and upset, like, what if I just forgave him? Like, I know the horrible things he's been through, and the horrible, horrible abuse as a kid, and I'm sure there's so much more that I don't even know about. And I just thought about, on this ride, like, forgiving him and being like, hey, that's how you knew to love me. Like, yes, you've hit me and you've said some really crazy stuff, but you don't know any better. Like, you don't know what love is, and he couldn't give that to me because he doesn't know what it is. And so I just found forgiveness from my dad, and I was riding back. I stopped at my house, went to bed for a minute, woke up, and it was like just starting to get dark. And so that loneliness creeped back in, so I got back on my bike, ripped it out on Lincoln, like towards Wheatland, which is just fields, like middle of nowhere. And a friend of mine had passed away not that long ago. It was maybe about a month. He overdosed, and he was a really good friend of mine. And I was riding, and I was like, the sun started like coming up, and his favorite color was purple. And I was riding, and it was like the most purple sunrise I've ever seen. And I put my bike in cruise control, and I stood up on the seat, and just like feeling the wind and just standing there, I was like, whoa, you know what, life is a lot more beautiful than I'm realizing right now. Like, I'm so in this rut of being so hurt and resentful towards people that I almost was going to hurt someone. And if I would have gone through with the drug running, I would have hurt other people and their family, like not even knowing it. Because that affects, like, you know, you give drugs to someone, that's affecting their life more than I'm realizing. And, you know, and instead I was like on this ride looking at this sunrise, and in my head I was like, wow, that's like a big thank you to my friend. Like, I think that was a sign. Like, it was beautiful. And when I got home, I literally just packed all my stuff and was like, I'm going. I'm out. And just found so much like love and acceptance towards people, and not I think another thing is like not taking things personally. Like, some people are gonna leave you. It might be you, it might not be. It might be their own struggles. I've left plenty of people because I was in my own head, you know? And yeah, it was really, and now like I think I'm just in a really grateful place now. Like, I have no desire to go back to that really rough time. Like, I don't want to go back into.
How old are you now?
I'm 21.
21, so you're still super young.
Still super young. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just always going to be a terrible outcome.
Yeah.
When you get assaulted like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it just is.
It is.
It's just like, guys don't understand how horrible that can be.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, those two guys that did this to you are thinking about themselves 100%.
Oh, yeah.
They weren't considering your feelings at all.
No. And I heard from one of them, and, you know, he was like, yeah, I mean, you look fucked up. That's all he had to say. Because he was like, you look crazy now. And I was like, good. I'm happy. Like, I've gotten to a point where I don't wake up every single day and think about it. And it's taken a lot of like internal work to get to that point where I thought about it, and I was like, I was looking in the mirror one time, because I just got out of a long shower, and I was like, oh, still dirty, you know? And I looked in the mirror, and I was like, is this really, like, is this my present now? Like, is this, I'm still meeting people and feeling like they're looking at me going, well, she failed as a drummer because she got raped, you know? And I was instead looking at that and being like, no, I don't, that isn't my present, and that's not my future, you know? Like, I will always have had that happen. I can't change that, but I can change like my outcome for my life, and not living in this sense of constant anger towards people, like constant looking in the mirror and being like, ugh, gross, you know? No one's gonna love me because that happened. And instead, kind of living in a sense of like, I think the ultimate thing is the only positive that I can think about for any of this happening is like, if me sharing my story and like how much your interview like with Jason helped me, if that can help one other person just not feel so alone in that, then great. Like, then it doesn't make...
I'll guarantee it.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah, like, it doesn't make what happened right. It doesn't make me feel better. It just makes me feel like if there is a positive out of all of that happening, if that helps one, like, kid not feel like they need to, one, go down the path that I went down and almost went down, but two, like, there are so many people that happens to, and it's really like, it also comes down to like, how do you want to be for your future, you know? Going down drugs and alcohol will get you down nothing but a dark path, you know? And finding ways that you can like heal from that, yeah, like that's why I want to do this, and that's why I wrote a book and having that come out, because it's like, I don't know, I handled everything on my own. I've never been to therapy since I was 10 and my dad was talking to my therapist. But I've fixed my shit, you know? Like, I've handled it. I've been self-destructive, and I've also found ways to heal from my stuff by myself. And a big part of it was getting tattooed, honestly. Like,
But you did therapy as well?
No.
You never did therapy?
Never did therapy.
Mm.
No, I mean, obviously, I've spent a lot of time in tattoo shops, and
What do the tattoos do for you?
You know, it covers up the skin that I don't have anymore. Like, that didn't make any sense. The tattoos, like, they've put something beautiful over something that I never wanted to see again. Like, my arms and my neck especially, I just would look down and be like, ew, you know? Like, so many people took advantage of me. I'm just so gross. Like, I wish I could just remove my skin was what I wanted. Like, I've had so many times where I get into these panic attacks and I just wanted to crawl out of my skin. And so when I started getting tattooed, like, his name's Chris, he's in Roseville. He was the first tattoo artist I went to, and he gave me this like really pretty like hummingbird for my mom. She hated tattoos, so I was like, I'll get one for her first, like, then she'll like it. The pain of getting tattooed made me so present, and I've been running from my emotions for so long, so sitting like with that needle, I couldn't just get in my head. Like, I'm like, wow, that hurts, you know? Let me be in my body, and I'm talking to this incredible artist who has so much more wisdom than me that I'm talking to and I'm learning from. Like, I was learning so much about sobriety and like healing and everything, and then it just kept going, and the more tattoos I got, the less I would see myself as like that younger kid that like just was dirty, you know? I started seeing something where I'm like, these are cool, like, I still have to get this finished, but I don't see that skin anymore. Like, I don't feel like the same person that I was 2 years ago.
What?
And even a year ago. Like, I mean, I think in a year and a half I got like everything done, which is a lot. Like, every now and then I'll look, like, I'll take a shower and be like, oh shit, that's a lot. But it just like healed me, and talking to these incredible artists, just like, I would leave the tattoo shop and feel like I just completed like 5 years of therapy from talking to these guys who have had really rough lives, and they got help for it, and they healed. And a lot of these guys ride Harleys too, so we'd talk about motorcycles, and I slowly learned to trust these guys, that it was fun. Like, I was laying, like, when I got like my sternum done, I was laying there like while my tattoo artist was tattooing me, and I was like, wow, I feel really comfortable. Like, I trust this guy. And I started realizing like I was building trust with these tough looking men that a lot of people, like my mom's friends were like, oh, you need to get out of that crowd. Like they're going to be bad influences on you. And I have never met better people than like the ones that are in my life now, that are tattoo artists, that are bikers, that are really, they to some, they would look intimidating, you know? I mean, I almost got like, I was telling my mom, I was like, oh, maybe I'll get like a little face tattoo. And she's like, no. you need to get out of your crowd for a bit and then think about it. But I see these people as like so insightful and so just such beautiful people that have taught me so much, that have taught me more than a therapist that, you know, has never lived that life could, in my opinion, could give me advice. Like, I'll take advice from the guy that went to prison for 10 years and is sober and is doing all these great things for people, because he truly understands how I feel. Like, he understands where I've been and what I've been through, and really wanting to be a better person every day than go back to where I was, you know? So that's kind of why I have a lot of tattoos. I mean, they don't all have meaning. It's all traditional. Like, it's not, a couple of them do, but for the most part, I just wanted everything covered, and to not have that same body that I did when I was, you know, 17 and 19. Yeah.
You have an interesting story.
Thank you. It's been a bit, you know.
For a 21-year-old, you have a lot.
Yeah. But, you know, I think it's all just, if it helps one person, and that gives me a positive thing to look at, rather than resent and be upset, you know.
Yeah, it was fucking good.
It ended up us using together. And like I said, it was one of the most bittersweet moments, because we would shoot heroin together, and it was the first time in my life that my dad would talk to me as like a friend.
All right, Matt, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
I'm from a little town in Florida called Daytona Beach, Florida.
Tell me about your family growing up.
So my dad was a big football player. He was he went to Purdue, starting defensive end in the Big Ten. His dad, my grandfather, was the voice of the Jets for a long time, for about 5 years. You know, the on the field, like, number 32 just made a big play. Like, you know, I wasn't a big football guy. I went into the arts, but you know, my dad was a big football player in Purdue, and he was a wild person. You know, after my dad passed, I started getting a lot of, you know, his college buddies and his college girlfriend calling and telling me and giving me pictures and everything like that. But, you know, he had this aura about him that I was told. And after Purdue, he went to law school at Florida State University. And that's where he met my mom. And he graduated, you know, got a law degree. And my mom's dad, my maternal grandfather, was a big attorney in Daytona Beach. So my dad meets my mom, you know, goes back because he's a lawyer, meets my grandfather. And they were on two different sides of the line. My grandfather was a prosecutor and also the state attorney for a long time for the 7th Circuit. So all the way from Jacksonville down to, you know, Volusia County and beyond. And they just didn't get along at all. My dad was, you know, defending the criminals that would go to jail, like motorcycle gangs, like the Outlaws, you know, and then my grandfather was putting them behind bars. So there was just this huge tug of war between my family, which eventually ended up in them not talking. I don't have a relationship with my grandfather, and it also created an interesting dynamic for me. So I sort of, you know, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I started, you know, getting into drugs and alcohol. My dad was big into drugs and alcohol, and I would be arrested and my dad would defend me. And when my papers came across the desk, my grandfather was the state attorney. So he always had to kick it over to outside of his jurisdiction, which created a big expense for the state to try and, and prosecute me. So I just kept getting out of trouble. I was arrested like 17 times before I was 18 years old. Now, it's fighting, paraphernalia, these kinds of things. It wasn't, major crimes. It was sort of kid stuff, if you will. But, I would definitely use that to my advantage. And it was really hard for the cops to get me. So every time they'd see my shitty little red, car, they would pull me over and try to pin something on me. But that created a major rift between, my grandfather and the kids. I'm a twin. I have a twin brother, and I have a younger brother and an older sister. And it was, it was just sort of wild growing up in a household that was tumultuous. My dad and my mom got divorced when I was 7 years old, I believe. And then my dad started dating. And one of the people he was dating, he was drinking and she was driving, and they smashed into a tree on his side of the car. And it completely ruined his leg. So he was, essentially disabled in a big way and dealt with pain management his whole life. And he started getting into opiates, and, back in the, late 90s, early 2000s, opioids sort of came onto the scene, and my dad just took to that, and he was like, I'm in pain, this helps me, and I have to do that. And it really just started to take a deep dive and be a huge part of his life. He sort of drank and used first, and then everything else came second. And it eventually led to my dad, again, he was a criminal defense attorney. He was defending major criminals. There was one time where there was an African-American, a black individual who had raped someone. And my dad heard that they had given him like a really crappy defense attorney. And my dad hated the police. He despised the police. So he went in pro bono, defended that guy, and got him a far less sentence than maybe he deserved. And the cops hated him for that specific incident. And they even burned crosses on our lawn. We had to be escorted to school, because of fear of retaliation for that kind of stuff. He got into major cases with violent criminals. The Outlaws were a motorcycle gang. And I remember I was super young, and my dad was really drunk. And he was like, come here, son, come look at this. And he showed me an autopsy, or like evidence video. And it was an outlaw cutting off the nose of someone who was tied to a tree. And I have no idea why he showed me that, but
while he's alive?
While the victim was alive, my dad showed me an evidence video, because the outlaws, they filmed that stuff, like for their own pleasure or whatever the case may be. And I never forgot that. I remember another one where it was a police walk through of a house, and it came around the corner of a couch, and there was a woman laid there, legs like broken backwards and a butcher knife in her neck. And I don't know what he was showing me that for. I think now, 25 years later, that those things were weighing on him, and he may have been trying to pass it off in some weird way, or to show me and my twin brother, my younger brother and my sister didn't sort of get that from him. I can't tell their story because I don't know exactly, but I know my twin brother saw those kinds of things. But I don't know, was he trying to offload the burden? Was he trying to show me how disgusting life can be? I wasn't exactly sure of that, but that's sort of the household that I grew up in, was this wild defense attorney who was revered And everybody called him when they got in trouble. So there was the criminal world loved my dad.
What?
And then the other side, the law, hated him. And it created just such a weird dynamic for us growing up. And my dad wasn't against drugs and alcohol. You know, he used that to medicate whatever feelings were going on inside of him. So, you know, I took to it pretty immediately at 12 years old. That's when I started using and drinking. By the time I was 15, I was a full-blown heroin addict, and it was rough. And during that time, my dad had befriended one of the biggest marijuana dealers in the state of Florida. And the guy was like his best friend. And one day the guy's coming home with a truck full of weed and he gets caught. My dad, prior to that, had started to try to help him hide his money and wash his money. So he was siphoning off money and putting it into this account under this guy's wife's name in small increments. And it eventually added up to like 360 grand or something like that. And when my dad's best friend got caught, the cops knew about this. And they said, we're gonna let you off, but you got to rat on Craig Boda about how this money came to this account. Or we're gonna charge you and we're gonna charge your wife with tax evasion and money laundering. So the guy rolled on my dad. And
I would roll on your dad too.
you know, to this day, I feel like,
I'm sorry.
would I have done that? You know what I mean? Like, would I have thrown my best friend under the bus to save my family or what? I'm still sort of on the, excuse me, I'm still on the fence about that. But it put my dad in prison. And it also made him a hateful person. He didn't trust anybody ever again. And, you know, my dad, tax evasion is a white collar crime. So he could have done a couple months and came out and dealt with the consequences. You know, he was disbarred, which that was his identity. But instead of like working with the system,
disbarred,
he got a fax from.
You think this isn't about getting disbarred? It's about getting disbarred, you idiot. You don't even know his life well enough to understand that getting disbarred is the worst thing that can happen to a lawyer. You're talking about it like it's his own personality or something he did, but he got disbarred. That's the end of your job as a lawyer. Am I wrong? I don't know. If you get disbarred, maybe if you're famous, they might forget who you are.
You know, this is back in the days of fax machines. He got a fax from the state that gave him an offer. My dad took the paper, turned it over, and wrote, "Fuck you," and faxed it back. And that gave him the maximum sentence. He was, you know, put in like a maximum security facility. He was eventually moved to, I think it was Jessup, which is outside somewhere in Georgia. And, you know, we were able to visit him a couple times. He really didn't want us to see him there. And during this time, we had my stepmom. So my parents got divorced at 7. At about 11 years old, my dad got a nanny to come and live in. And this nanny was very beautiful. And she was 13 years younger than my dad. And it didn't take long before, you know, they started a relationship and she became my stepmom. And she was just a shining light. You know, she was one of the only people that knew how to deal with my dad's energy. And, you know, eventually what happened was my dad sort of pulled her over into the dark side and they started using together. And she, a 26-year-old woman, taking care of 4 kids while my dad was in prison, you know, and she did a great job. She really did. But he rubbed off on her and she eventually caught like a major habit, you know, especially with Xanax and opiates. And, you know, it's a shame to say, but my dad eventually, you know, after prison, got divorced from my stepmom. She just couldn't handle it, and she had to sneak out in the middle of the night because he was such a force, you know? I don't know if he...
You're such a force.
I know he never got physical and, like, never hit her, but there was something about her not being able to leave him, right? So her mom came from Indianapolis, Indiana, in the middle of the night, and she walked out with one bag and left. And that started the downfall of my dad in a big way. He wasn't able to practice law for 7 years, and during that time, You know, we had a giant house, you know, on 3 acres, 8 bedrooms. There was a wraparound deck on a pool and a dock to, you know, the intercoastal. You know, it was just this giant property, and my dad bred pit bulls, and, you know, we had a greenhouse, and, you know, and all those things. We had a house on Cudjoe Key in the Keys, and all those things just one by one got fucked away. And he eventually found himself in my mother, his ex-wife's, you know, rental home. It was just a tiny little duplex. And I remember going there, and it was all the expensive furniture from our house, like just stuffed into this tiny little place. And he was just reduced to almost nothing. You know, he couldn't work. He did some like under the table consulting and stuff like that, but he just got deeper and deeper and deeper into drugs and alcohol. Mainly, he started shooting heroin at that time. I was already a full-blown heroin addict. Me and my dad were at odds. He was at odds with all the kids, never really talked to us. And, you know, a kid needs his father. They really do. And you know, I've seen videos of yours, and the way a person's childhood goes, it just shapes their whole life. It really does. And there was just a hole in my heart that was missing because of this relationship that I have with my father. And one of the most bittersweet moments of my life was my dad called me. I was trying to go to Tallahassee Community College, like sort of adjacent to where he went to college, but I couldn't get into that college because I didn't even finish high school. You know, I was in a rock band. I was the lead singer, but unfortunately I couldn't sing. So I would just sort of yell, and, you know, we used auto-tune to make me sound kind of good. And that was a funny little thing because the kids in the band were actually really good musicians, and I had that frontman energy, and people would call it Matt Boda's band. And, like, the kids were like, "You can't even sing!" Like, and they're, you know, you're getting all the attention. And so I had this weird dynamic where my friends would always make fun of me. I didn't have a safe home to be in, and using was the only thing that gave me relief. And, you know, I can honestly say today that heroin saved my life. I might have, you know, committed suicide. Like, honestly, I tried a couple of times when I was, you know, when I was younger. You know, I tried one time when I was like 17, and then again, you know, in my early 20s, around 20 years old. And, you know, the drugs and alcohol gave me the relief that I needed to get through those days, right? And I remember my dad calls me, and I'm in Tallahassee, and he says, "Hey, I got my license back. I'm gonna start practicing law again, and I want you to come and help me rebuild, and I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know." And I was just filled with this, like, oh my God, my dad needs me. Like, and I just packed up my shit and I went home. And I stayed with my dad in this little duplex, you know, and before we could even get started, it ended up us using together. And like I said, it was one of the most bittersweet moments because we would shoot heroin together. And it was the first time in my life that my dad would talk to me as like a friend. You know, we had these deep conversations. He was very well read. You know, he had a giant library in our house, Canterbury Tales, and, you know, just some of the most classic books. And he was so well read. And he, you know, to me, he was Superman. And using together felt like the first time I was able to connect with him in a real way. And, you know, it just devolved. And eventually what happened was people knew that he could practice law, so they were calling him to hire him. He would take their money and he would buy heroin and he wouldn't show up to court. And so it, you know, it didn't take very long at all for people to start, you know, saying, "What the fuck?" You know what I mean? "I just lost my kids because of you." Da, 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 da. And I was in the middle of this. And there was one day when this guy came to our house, bang, 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 and just, you know, almost ripped down the door. And I opened it up and he was like, "Where's your fucking dad?" And I was like, he's in the back room. And the guy just pushed past me. My dad's super high, laying in bed, and the guy walks over and just starts screaming in his face. And he was like, "I just want the money I gave you yesterday." Like this close to my dad's face and screaming at him. My dad was a Golden Glove boxer. You know, he was a hockey player, he was a football player, and he was just this crippled, pale shadow of the guy that he was, getting yelled inches from his face for stealing someone's money, and that was the guy that lost his kids to, you know, a junkie mother. And it was really serious, and the guy, you know, left, and my dad made me go pick up like this check, and I signed it over to the guy, and I really started to feel like there was something wrong. So I called his mother, my grandmother, and I told her, and she called the police. And, you know, about a day after that event, the police showed up at the house, and they took my dad on something called a 5150, which, here it's called 5150 in California. There it's called Baker Act. And so you're a danger to yourself or to others. They took him away. And as my dad was led out of the house in handcuffs, he looked at me, asked me like, "You fucking ratted on me." You know what I mean? He looked at me like, "You fucking snake. You know, you're gonna call the police on your dad?" And I just saw that look, and I was just like, you know. And then the first thing I did when he left was rooted around the house to find another hit, you know? And about an hour later, I'm sitting in the house, and I hear, and a giant ambulance pulls up, and the doors are wide open on the back of the ambulance, and it just pulls up all crooked on the driveway, and my dad gets out of the front seat of the ambulance, and he's got these like little tiny shorts on, he's barefoot and no shirt, and he's got blood all over him because I guess he ripped out the IV.
And stole the ambulance.
Then when he ripped out the IV, ran out of the hospital, jumped in an ambulance, and drove it back to the house. Within 40 seconds of that, I walked out of the house and I looked and I said, "Dad, what are you doing?" And he goes, "What do you mean? I'm coming home." And like, right then, 15 cop cars pull up and they all pull their guns. They're like, "Get down, we're gonna fucking shoot you." And I ran in front of them. I was like, "Don't shoot my dad, don't shoot my dad." And one of the cops came up and ripped me out of the way, and they just pepper sprayed the crap out of him. And he was just like, watching my dad, you know, get pepper sprayed, and then he fell off the side of the driveway and into like a water retention pond, just right into the fucking mud. You know what I mean? And so my grandfather, the prosecutor, the state attorney, shows up. Somebody had called him, and also the press, the local paper showed up too. Just all these people around. My grandfather like sort of, you know, put some calm on the situation. They lead my dad back to the car. The cops were keeping me in the house. My grandfather came up and I was like, "Let me speak to my fucking dad," you know. And my grandfather looked at the cop and they were like, let him talk. So I ran over to the cop car, and they rolled down the window, and there was bars on the window. So it was, the window would go up, and when it came down, you couldn't just reach in there. It was just, there was bars there. And I remember I reached between the bars and I grabbed the back of his head, and I put it at the bars, put our heads together, and I looked at him and I said, "Do you just want to die?" And he just looked at me and he just shook his head. And I'll never forget that moment, because this is the last time I talked to my dad. And he went and lived, he lost everything, and he went and lived in his grandmother's, or in his mother, my grandmother's, you know, spare bedroom and over by Tampa. And I got a call from her about 6 months later or something, and she said, your dad died. And I remember I got that call, and all I said was, "I didn't get to say goodbye." And I smashed the phone on the ground, and what had happened was he had got a terrible infection from his injury. And he was put on an IV, and he was on methadone. So he came to the conclusion that if he poured the methadone into the PICC line, it would go right into his bloodstream, but it immediately gave him a heart attack. So he died, you know, essentially of an opiate overdose. And, you know, from that point on, I was trying to die myself. You know what I mean? I wanted to join my dad. You know, he was God, you know, and to quote Fight Club, you know, if our fathers are models for God and our fathers failed, what does that tell you about God? You know, so I just had this deep-seated disgust for life, you know? And I even had a tattoo on my wrist that said, God's in his heaven, all's right with the world. Like, he's up there, we're down here. He's got nothing to do with us. And, you know, I just sort of sought oblivion.
That's Neon
And
Genesis.
my stepmom, who had snuck out in the middle of the night, goes back to Indianapolis. And, you know, that's where the second chapter of my life began.
And there was an article about this in ESPN, correct?
Yeah, yeah, there was. There was an article that came out in ESPN in 2014, and it was about Jim Irsay, who is the owner of the Indianapolis Colts and my family. And we'd have to back up in order to understand how it led up to there. So like I said, my stepmom sneaks out. My stepmom had raised me, you know, my whole life for 15 years, 13 years. And she goes back to Indianapolis where she's from. And she meets Jim Irsay, the owner of the Indianapolis Colts. And he immediately took a liking to her. They slowly became intimate. And for 8 years, they were together. And Jim was married, but he was separated from his wife. And this is a known fact. All of this is already out there. I'm not spilling the beans on anything. This article has everything I'm gonna tell you already in there, right? But coming from my perspective, like that's what we're talking about here. That's what you're asking me about. And so for 8 years, you know, half of my addiction is knowing Jim. And then the other half is Jim saving me. And the first half was because he was just getting into a serious relationship with my stepmom. And it was just such a wild ride. I mean, I was driving around like a little shitty car, couldn't pay my rent, but I would get flown to a football game and stay in like the Ritz-Carlton or, you know, the Peninsula, like 5-star diamond hotels or whatever, and go to a football game. And then I'd get dropped back off in my tiny little life and have to fend for myself. And later on I figured out that my stepmom was essentially one of the only people that was trying to not take money from Jim, right? She wanted to be that one person in his life, you know, but people at that level, that's their big battle, is that everybody wants something from them. So they're really isolated people, at least from my experience of knowing Jim, and later on knowing a lot of people that Jim had introduced me to. So she would say, you need to take care of yourself. But, you know, when we're going to this football game, we'll show you the high ends of society, right? And I'd go to these games when I was still using, and I remember stuff like I would go to a bar, and I would drink, and my tab would be $50. And when they'd give me the tab, you can sign it over to the room that you're in. So I would put a $250 tip on the tab and hand it over, and look up, and they'd be like, who's this guy? You know what I mean? Like, he's got, you know, this kind of cash, like, and the look that they gave me, it just filled me with like a sense of power. But my power was by proxy, so it was fake, you know? And it really ruined my relationship to money. It really did, because the best way I can explain it is like, if life's a vibration, right? You've got the high 1% vibration up here, you've got the middle ground here, and then you've got the low ground vibration. If you want to break that up into, you know, poor, middle class, and rich, right? My life with my dad was upper class, right? And my vibration's here. And then it just crashed, right? I was riches to rags with my dad. And then I was at the bottom of the barrel, I couldn't pay my rent. Then all of a sudden this billionaire comes into my life and sweeps me away. And my vibrations start to dip into that top vibration. I would hit it every once in a while into that top 0.0001% and see what the world was like through that lens. And it was intoxicating. But then I would come back down on those valleys, back into the mediocre world, and it was just this roller coaster of like, am I supposed to be up here, or am I supposed to be down here? And I couldn't reconcile that with my own identity. And I really just wanted to be up there. You know, I wanted the money to save me. I wanted the protection that money gave you to forget this old life. And, you know, eventually, you know, my addiction got so bad that I was living in Miami at the time, and I started, you know, the music didn't like me. I loved music, but it didn't like me. And so I you know, I was like, well, if music doesn't love me, you know, I love movies, so I'm gonna go and try to make movies. So I was at this little film school in Miami, and, you know, still deep into opiates. And there was this place called Overtown, which essentially is Skid Row of Miami. And there was train tracks, and you'd have to sneak across, but cops would be on both sides, you know, because they knew, you see a little white guy going across the tracks, he knew what they were going there for. And it was, on the other side of those tracks, it was like The Wire. I don't know if you've ever seen HBO's The Wire, but it was just a free-for-all. And, you know, I'd sneak over there, and I'd get into the world, and, you know, open up and just people on the streets doing everything. And, you know, guys would ride on bikes, be like, I got that Batman, I got that green alien, you know, and I'd go up there and I'd buy from them. And one particular time I went over there and I got what I needed, and I started to go across the tracks, and a cop car pulled up on me. I just was crossing over, and then they just pulled up right there. They rolled down the window, and they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, just like fucking shaking like a rabbit in a tiger's cage. I like couldn't speak. And I just reached into my pocket, like pulled out the bag and like flicked it on the ground like I was being slick or something. And they just looked in the ground, looked at me like, what the fuck? And I just started running. And I was like, whoa.
I don't like this guy.
Josh, what do you think of a game that allows players to trade currency between players? For example, if I wanted to sell 100 iron ore for $5 or 100 gold coins to another player, all transactions would be between players and not the gaming company. An economy for the players. Hardcore, I think you have invented money laundering. I think you have, without realizing it, just straight up invented what we call fraud. When you say they're direct between players to player, they won't be though, because somewhere the company will need to insure themselves. And somewhere the company will need to at least process the payment from one person. And somewhere the company will need to at least process the payment from one person to another. Otherwise, you are trying to form some kind of direct link between two players' banking systems. There has to be a third party that the money goes through, or at least is kind of withdrawn from. If there's no third party, you are having a direct money-to-money transfer, which means the person getting money sent to them would then be responsible for the taxes on that. I mean, will that be possible? Potentially. But, I mean, apart from that, yeah, hang on. Yes, you are right. It will take 3% per transaction. Right, so it's not a direct money-to-money transfer. What you just invented there is effectively just a banking system. Pretty sure Earth 2 tried that. Why do we need to bring real-life money into this? That's the question. Why does real-life money need to be brought into the system at all? Could you not just have people trade within the game to play the game? Have I played Entropia Universe? No, but I know about how it works. Okay, so Hardcore, let me ask you a question. Are you trying to create a game that competes with Entropia Universe? And if you are, why? Is it because you think you can make a good game, or because you think you can make money with this system? Do you see people playing the game as players, or do you see them as using a real money system that you can monetize? There will always be people paying for items outside of the game. Yeah, there will, but, like, is the game good? Are you making a good game? Or have you thought of a system that you can make money in that you're trying to build a game around? I want it to be a great game, but I also want players to be able to make money for their time spent. No! A game is not an investment to make you money. It's a fun thing to do with your free time. Stop trying to monetize someone's involvement in the game, because then you won't get players, you will get investors, and they don't want a good game. They want to make money. And the best way of making money will very, very rarely be playing a video game. Make a game that people enjoy. Don't make something that pays people. You will just get crypto bros. Remember all those NFT games that took off? Neither do I. That's why I'm asking. Okay, don't. But of course, if you turn around and ask a crypto bro, hey, what should I do? He'll be like, yeah, man, do this. Get it on the blockchain, sort it out. Add some drop shipping to it as well. Pay in cryptocurrency, whatever you want. I don't care that I'm not making money when I play a game, because I'm not playing a game to make money. I work to get money to buy games. And then I play the games to enjoy the experience the game gives me. I'm not thinking, well, this part of my gaming experience must be monetized. Aren't you working now? I absolutely am. But I'm not making money within the game. I'll make money if people subscribe to it. To me. You have died. God damn it. That was entirely on me. You guys can reset the dungeon and see if you can. But I ain't coming back from this. If you play a game to make money, it's a second job, not a hobby. Bald Eagle, that is absolutely correct. But it can be both. Yes, thank you for informing me that I died. If you say that you want people to make money in your game, are you saying that if they don't, they won't continue to play your game? Do you believe your game is good enough to hold people through pure design? The difference between my game and Entropia has a paywall that you will eventually hit. My game, it's all optional. Okay, Hardcore Tamale, does your game currently exist? The reason I'm being harsh and direct with this, you need to understand, is I get about 100 messages a week from people making games. And all of them have excellent ideas about how to monetize it, how to create it, what it's going to be, what it's not going to be. And I ask the same question: what have you actually got? And their answer is normally an idea. They're normally not developers, they're not programmers, they're not even businessmen normally. It is just straight up, they have an idea for how to make money. And they come to me and say, hey, would this work? They're ideas, guys. And they normally don't have a lot of experience behind them. They've got big dreams, but very little actual experience. And then they're focusing so much on the how is this game going to make money, they forget about the small thing of making the game itself is going to take time and money. I have a build in Unreal Engine 5. I have functionality, mechanics, and a world made. You're polishing it. Okay, why do you need to bring in real-world money to it? Is it good enough for people to just, play? Also, if you have a build in Unreal Engine 5, if it's just a game full of pre-bought assets, what is preventing somebody else doing the same thing? Also, you have to understand, and this is going to be really obvious. It's going to sound horrible. It's going to be obvious. If you need to come to Twitch to ask a Twitch streamer if your idea is a good idea, you maybe don't have your idea as fully fleshed out as you think you do. Because if I were to turn around and say, no, it's a bad idea, don't do it, and you say, thanks for your input, I'm not going to do it, then you were never going to do it anyway. Josh, aren't you just a Twitch streamer? Yeah, I absolutely am. Jakaris, I am literally just a Twitch streamer. Which is why when someone comes to me and says, hey, is this a good idea? My opinion does not matter. I can say it's a good idea, I can say it's a bad idea. Ultimately, if someone is going to change what they're going to do based on my input or output on Twitch, completely the wrong vibes. No, I said you aren't just a Twitch streamer. Oh no, I am. I am just a Twitch streamer. That's all I am. If someone wants to hire me as a consultant, then I will sit down and I will ask about them consulting. But the questions that I ask as a consultant are not the kind of questions that most people who come to me with ideas are able to answer. UE5 is a bad engine to make that game in because it costs a lot to run. Yeah, obviously using a simpler engine is going to be better. I do have good insight into MMORPGs, which is why when people say to me, Josh, what's your advice on making an MMORPG? My advice is don't. People say to me, Josh, what would you do if you had enough money to make an MMORPG? And I've always given the same answer. I would make the most dark, pattern-filled mobile gacha game you ever did see. I would use my powers for evil, straight up. Like immediately. Failure rate's probably way higher than 90%. Make a mobile gacha game to fund the MMO. If I had the money required to make a successful game, I would just retire. I believe it's a game that hits all areas most people play. It isn't. You make a game for everyone, you make a game for no one. The reason I came to you is because I agree with your views on RPGs. The main reason is because you have a good following. Any publicity is good publicity. Not this stuff. If you believe it's a game that everyone's going to play, nobody is going to play it. You make a game for everyone, you make a game for no one. Make a small video game that you believe is a fun experience that you want to bring to the world. If people like it, they'll give you money. After that, make something bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. You are playing the exact game that was made for everyone, LMAO. No, I'm not. This wasn't made for everyone. People that want sci-fi don't want this. People that want football games don't want this. This is not a game made for everyone at all. It's a game made for people that want a consistent online MMORPG. The MMO genre is not big. World of Warcraft is popular, but it is still remarkably small within gaming in general. If you believe that World of Warcraft is the most popular MMORPG, that is true. But if you believe that the MMORPG genre is big compared to gaming as a whole, you are wrong. The MMORPG genre is not big compared to gaming as a whole. It is very small. It is still a niche within a niche. And I think people that focus on MMORPGs, I never said everyone on my initial message, I said that most people play. Tamale, do you believe most gamers in the world play World of Warcraft? There are gamers in the world that have never even heard of it. Tamale, okay, here's a question. What's the biggest game in the world? No, that's too... Okay, yeah. What's the most popular played game in the world? Tamale, you're a developer. Without Googling, what's the most popular played game in the world? People are saying soccer. No, video game. I'm not trying to trick you. Most popular played video game in the world. That Chinese PUBG ripoff. Spot on. It's called Crossfire. Most popular played game in the world is Crossfire. It's a Chinese kind of first-person shooter game. But we haven't heard of it over in the West because it's not popular. What is the highest revenue game in the world? What is the highest revenue generation game in the world? No one has said it in chat yet. It is a mobile game called Honor of Kings. You can go and Google this. Honor of Kings is a Chinese remake of League of Legends. League of Legends did not release in China, it did not release on mobile, they wanted to make their own version, so they made Honor of Kings. Honor of Kings made so much money, League of Legends panicked and tried to make a mobile version of themselves really quickly called Wild Rift. Wild Rift did not succeed and has not been maintained. Honor of Kings made more money than almost any other mobile games put together. And yet, whenever someone says they want to make a game for everyone, they never want to make a mobile game and they never want to make a first-person shooter game. They always want to make an MMORPG. Despite the fact that the MMORPG genre is so far down the list of successful, both culturally and financially, games, that it's almost irrelevant to look at. If you want to make a game that makes money, make a mobile gacha game. If you want to make a game that you enjoy playing, make an MMORPG, that's fine, but do not expect it to make money. Honor of Kings, you can go and have a look. Honor of Kings made more money than almost... It's not about the money. In that case, Tamale, why do you have a real cash trading shop? If it's not about the money, why was the first question you asked me about how monetary value within your game works? I mean, I'm happy to have this conversation. I'm happy to chat to you about it. And the reason that I might be slightly more confrontational about this is because if you were to hire me as a consultant, which companies and individuals have done, the first thing I do is come in very hot with questions. And if you can't answer those questions with data, with reasons, or if those questions and that, I suppose, aggressive attitude throws you off because I'm not supporting your project, then you would absolutely... not be ready to speak to investors. If you cannot answer the questions that I'm asking, you will not be able to answer the questions.
It's the must-have accessory for the fashionable conspiracy theorist on the go. So fully has this simple piece of homemade clothing come to symbolize paranoia and the fringe community that the mere term tinfoil hat has become pejorative shorthand for anyone whose beliefs differ from the mainstream. But who came up with the idea of using tinfoil to protect the mind against nefarious interference, and how did it become such a staple
Faraday.
of pop culture? And further, can a few layers of
Faraday
ordinary
cage.
kitchen foil really protect the brain from electromagnetic radiation? The answer might actually surprise you, so stay tuned. The first known depiction of tinfoil hats as a means of psychic protection appears in the 1927 short story The Tissue Culture King by Julian Huxley, brother of the more famous Aldous Huxley, by the way. In the story, a biologist named Hascombe is held captive by an African tribe. Wishing to ingratiate himself to the tribe's leader, King Bugala, Hascombe offers the culture a sample of his tissue in order to guarantee his immortality and extend his royal powers. With the king's blessing, Hascombe builds an elaborate jungle laboratory and engages in all sorts of mad scientist antics, such as breeding double-headed animals and genetically enhanced humans and imbuing the entire tribe with telepathic powers. And to protect himself from these powers, Hascombe hits upon a simple solution. The reader will perhaps ask how we ourselves expected to escape from the clutches of the super consciousness we had created. Well, we had discovered that metal was relatively impervious to the telepathic effects and had prepared for ourselves a sort of tin pulpit behind which we could stand while conducting experiments. This combined with caps of metal foil enormously reduced the effects on ourselves. We had not informed Bugala of this property of metal. For while Huxley's story certainly set the template, it's less clear how exactly tinfoil hats came to be the de facto shorthand of conspiracy theorists memorably featured in movies and TV shows such as The Simpsons, The X-Files, and Signs. What is known is that claims of radio being used for direct communication with people's minds, what conspiracy theorists call voice to skull or V2K, are nearly as old as radio technology itself. In the 1940s, actress Lucille Ball claimed to have picked up mysterious Morse code transmissions through the metal filings in her teeth, which the FBI allegedly traced to a hidden Japanese radio station. In 1957, British author Evelyn Waugh published The Ordeal of Gilbert Pinfold, a novel about an author who begins hearing voices while creeps far east. Throughout the novel, Pinfold becomes increasingly paranoid, coming to believe that the voices are being beamed into his head by a hidden radio transmitter, and that his fellow passengers are secretly compatriots of his unnamed tormentor. While the book is based on Waugh's own experiences of paranoia and hallucinations brought on by overuse of bromine-based sedatives, Pinfold's ordeal closely matches those of actual alleged victims of government mind control and telepathy, so-called targeted individuals or TIs. While relatively few in number, TIs are found all around the world, united in their adamant belief that they are being targeted by secret government mind control technology. The case of Philadelphia resident Harlan Gerard, detailed in a 2007 Washington Post article on the phenomenon, is typical of the TI experience. Quote, in 1984, appropriately enough, things got seriously weird. He left his real estate career to return to school at the University of Pennsylvania, where he was studying for a master's degree in landscape architecture. Then, he says, he began to hear voices. Gerard could distinguish several different male voices, which came complete with a mental image of how the voices were being generated, from a recording studio with 4 slops sitting around a card table drinking beer, he says. The voices were crass, but also strangely courteous, addressing him as Mr. Gerard. They taunted him, they asked him if he thought he was normal, they suggested he was going crazy, they insulted his classmates. When an overweight student showed up for a field trip in a white raincoat, they said, "Hey, Mr. Gerard, doesn't she look like a refrigerator?" 6 months after the voices began, they had another question for him. Mr. Gerard, why aren't you dead yet? At first, he recalls the voices would speak just 2 or 3 times a day, but it escalated into a near constant cacophony, often accompanied by severe pain all over his body, which Gerard now attributes to directed energy weapons that can shoot invisible beams. Gerard goes on to theorize that he was targeted due to a disparaging remark he made about the then US Vice President George H.W. Bush in the early 1980s, and the voices later confirmed this theory. Quote, one night I was going to bed, the usual drivel was going on, a constant stream of drivel. I was just about to go to bed, and a voice says, "Mr. Gerard, do you know who was in our studio with us?" That was George Bush, Vice President of the United States. While it might be easy to dismiss people like Harlan Gerard as delusional, the reality isn't quite that simple. TIs come from all walks of life, from landscape architects like Gerard to writers like Gloria Naylor, author of the acclaimed novel The Women of Brewster Place. Few have been diagnosed with psychotic disorders like schizophrenia, and most display no signs of mental illness outside their belief in being persecuted by the government. Indeed, psychologists have long recognized that auditory hallucinations can occur in people who are not mentally ill, particularly during periods of extreme stress. But in the absence of clinical explanation, sufferers may ascribe the voices to all sorts of causes. As one unnamed TI interviewed in the Washington Times article explains, each person undergoing this harassment is looking for the solution to the problem. Each person analyzes it through his or her own particular spectrum of beliefs. If you are a scientific-minded person, then you will probably analyze the situation from that perspective and conclude it must be done with some kind of electronic devices. If you are a religious person, you will see it as a struggle between the elements of whatever religion you believe in. If you are maybe perhaps more eccentric, you may think that it is alien in nature. Nonetheless, most TIs continue to insist that they are actually being targeted by the government. The community is very close-knit, maintaining numerous online forums and support groups and organizing protests on Capitol Hill. In 2001, their grievances proved compelling enough that Democratic Representative Dennis Kutzen of Ohio introduced a bill to ban the development of so-called psychotype weapons by the government. Unfortunately for the TI community, the bill was widely mocked by the press and quickly dropped. But where the government has failed, the internet has been more than willing to step in. In addition to community forums where members can share tips on the best designs for tinfoil hats and other homemade shields, TIs can choose from a variety of online stores offering the latest in mind control protection, including foil-lined scarves, beanies, baseball caps, ponchos, and even boxer shorts, described by the website Block EMF as a sheer comfortable undergarment you can wear over your regular ones. You shield you from the power lines and computer electronic fields and microwave, radar, and TV radiation. Now, all of this might seem fairly ridiculous, a case of unscrupulous online entrepreneurs exploiting a vulnerable segment of society, but the TI community might not be entirely unjustified in their suspicions, but attempts by the US military to develop radio-based psychotronic weapons have been documented for at least 50 years. Interest in this technology was sparked by an unusual phenomenon first reported during the Second World War. Personnel working in close proximity to radar transmitters sometimes reported hearing loud clicks or even speech inside their heads, implying that microwave signals signals were being transmitted directly into their brains with no intervening receiver. This phenomenon, known as the microwave auditory effect, was investigated in 1961 by American neuroscientist Alan Frey, who speculated that it was caused by microwaves heating and slightly expanding parts of the inner ear. Around the same time, it was discovered that the US Embassy in Moscow was being bombarded by low-level microwaves, leading to speculation that the Soviets were using some kind of directed energy weapon to disrupt the behavior of the embassy's staff. While the so-called Moscow signal was later attributed to electronic surveillance activities, in 1965, the Pentagon launched Project Pandora, a top-secret research project aimed at studying the physiological and psychological effects of low-level microwave radiation and developing an effective psychotronic weapon. Over the next 5 years, the project scientists exposed monkeys, US Navy sailors, and other unwitting test subjects to various forms of electromagnetic radiation. The results were inconclusive and the project was shut down in 1970. But further efforts to create an effective microwave weapon have cropped up from time to time. In 1994, the US Air Force attempted to develop a device that could beam messages from God directly into an enemy's head, instilling a sense of dread and inducing them to surrender. While the project continued until at least 2002 and succeeded in transmitting a few barely intelligible phrases, it is unknown how far the technology has progressed, if at all, since then. Around the same time, a firm called Waveband Corporation was granted a contract by the US Navy to develop a weapon known as mob excess deterrent using silent audio, or Medusa, designed to incapacitate people and break up riots using the microwave auditory effect. However, many biophysicists question the practicality of such a device, with University of Washington professor Bill Guy stating, "There's a misunderstanding by the public and even some scientists about this auditory effect. There couldn't possibly be a hazard from the sound because the heat would kill you well before you were bothered by the noise." So, as the saying goes, just because paranoid doesn't mean they're not trying to zap your brain with microwaves. But conspiracy theorists are far from the only customers of tinfoil hats and similar protective clothing. Far outnumbering TIs are those claiming to suffer from a condition known as electromagnetic hypersensitivity, or EHS. These individuals report experiencing a variety of unpleasant symptoms when exposed to electromagnetic radiation, such as emissions from cell phones, radio masts, Wi-Fi routers, and power lines. These symptoms range in type and intensity from mild nausea, rashes, and tingling sensations to incapacitating headaches and other pain. Sufferers often resort to wearing metal foil-lined clothing to protect themselves from electromagnetic radiation, or, in the most extreme cases, withdraw from society and isolate themselves in environments free of electrical appliances, like the character of Charles McGill on AMC television series, which was But while a 2007 survey found that around 4% of UK residents claim to suffer from EHS, there is thus far little evidence that the condition actually exists. Dozens of studies have been conducted in which subjects claiming to suffer from EHS are exposed to electromagnetic radiation and their reactions compared to those in a control group receiving no exposure. Interestingly, in the standard form of this experiment, subjects exposed to electromagnetic radiation do indeed report negative symptoms more often than those not exposed. However, when the same experiment is performed double-blind, that is, where neither subject nor scientist know which scenario is which, then this effect completely disappears. This indicates that EHS is not an actual physiological reaction to electromagnetic radiation, but rather an example of a strange phenomenon called the nocebo effect. The mirror image of the more well-known placebo effect, the nocebo effect refers to the phenomenon of normally harmless substances, or in this case radiation, inducing a perceived negative effect. Among doctors, the effect is also known as medical student syndrome, after the tendency of undergraduates to start developing symptoms of whatever disease they are studying. Alright, so, if not actual electromagnetic radiation, what then is triggering the very real symptoms in EHS sufferers? In a word, media coverage. As covered in our previous video, is genuine multiple personality disorder an actual thing? Reported cases of disputed disorders tend to spike following popular media portrayals of said disorders. In the case of multiple personality disorder, the culprit is typically books, movies, and TV shows like Sybil, United States of Tara, and Split, while in the case of EHS, it is news specials like a 2007 episode of BBC's Panorama titled Wi-Fi, a Warning Signal, which was widely criticised for exaggerating the danger posed by everyday electromagnetic radiation. Indeed, a 2013 study by Dr. Michael Withoft of the University of Mannheim found that subjects who were shown a clip of the BBC Panorama segments were more likely to report negative symptoms when exposed to a sham Wi-Fi signal, particularly if they were already prone to anxiety. Given the purely psychosomatic nature of EHS, the standard treatment involves psychiatric intervention like cognitive behavioral therapy. No foil-lined boxer shorts required. But suppose for a moment that we take the TIs and EHS sufferers at face value. Can a simple hat made of a few layers of kitchen foil really protect the brain from electromagnetic radiation? The first glance of theory appears sound, as a tinfoil hat is essentially intended to function as a Faraday cage. Faraday cages are metal enclosures intended to block the entry or escape of electromagnetic fields and are based on the fact that electromagnetic fields cannot penetrate a closed conductor. The common example of a Faraday cage is a metal mesh covering the window of a microwave oven, which is the reason late night sessions watching your microwave burrito spin round and round don't typically ends in your face melting off. Handily, a Faraday cage does not need to be solid to function. Many holes in the enclosure just need to be smaller than the wavelength of the radiation being blocked. It does, however, need to be continuous and closed, and this is where the effectiveness of the tinfoil hat comes into question. By only covering the top of the wearer's head, the typical beanie-style tinfoil hat leaves large areas vulnerable to penetration by electromagnetic radiation. Far more effective would be a tinfoil balaclava or helmet, or better still, a full tinfoil suit. The effectiveness of Faraday cages is also dependent on the thickness or skin depth of the conductor, meaning that a tinfoil hat would have to incorporate many layers of foil in order to be effective. But the only way to know for sure would be to conduct an experiment, and luckily the mad lads over at MIT are, as always, way ahead of the curve. In a tongue-in-cheek study conducted in 2005, a team of MIT electrical engineering students tested the effectiveness of 3 different models of tinfoil hats, amusingly dubbed the Classical, the Fez, and the Centurion. In the experiment, test subjects wore a receiving antenna underneath the tinfoil hats and were bombarded with electromagnetic radiation between 10 kHz and 3 GHz from a single generator. Then, for fitting the serious subject matter, a $250,000 network analyzer was used to process the results. Surprisingly, the study found that while the hats could effectively block out certain radio frequencies, it actually greatly amplified many others, particularly in the 1.2 and 2.6 GHz bands. These bands are just as to be used by cell phones, GPS communications, and tracking devices, leading the research team to conclude it requires no stretch of the imagination to conclude that the current helmet craze is likely to have been propagated by the government, possibly with the involvement of the FCC. We hope this report will encourage the paranoid community to develop improved helmet designs to avoid falling prey to these shortcomings. So, in conclusion, whether you believe the government is secretly zapping you with mind control rays, or that your Wi-Fi router is responsible for your Monday morning migraines, the classic tinfoil hat is unlikely to be of much help. Still, it doesn't hurt to be prepared.
I didn't go back far enough. No.
You've been examined.
Schmuckubus. Fuck Schmuckubus. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerd Castle. Today in the world of indie games, we're going to be taking a look at a title called City 20. We had a chance to take a look at this game, about a year ago, and I figured it was time to dive back on in because the developer's been patching like crazy, adding new content to the game, and in fact, I think it's a more feature-complete product than it's ever been in the past, and this is one of those surprising games that when they first sent me a demo, I don't remember if it was on itch.io or what, but it was before it released on Steam, they sent me a build. I had trouble figuring out exactly what the game was. There wasn't a lot of guidance, there wasn't a lot of structure. It was just a game with an open map where you were trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic world. Well, now City 20 has a bunch of lore, a bunch of theming, there's loads of content and things to fool around with inside of this game, and the best way that I can describe it to you is kind of like Harvest Moon was created and then crossed over with a game like Kenshi, where it's a sandbox where there are no restrictions, there's no main quest narrative, there's nothing really explicitly that the player is required to do. If you want to live your life as a thief breaking into people's houses and stealing all their stuff and then fencing it, you can 100% do that. If you want to be a model citizen of society and join one of the factions and actually help them out with their shortages, help them rebuild their facilities and just be a glorified handyman, you can absolutely do that. If you want to be a farmer, go do that. You want to be a crafter, a carpenter, a blacksmith, go and do that thing. Nothing in the game is ever going to push you in one direction or another, and so it's one of those games that you can really sink into and get lost inside of just with various tasks, and so I'm excited to be back here today. I've played about 4 hours here today preparing for this video, I guess, so I'm 5 or 6 days into the game right now. Looking forward to playing it with you all. If you look down below, you'll find a link to the early access version of this game, which you can purchase on Steam. The developers, they've been adding a bunch of content. The game just got a huge content drop, which I'm not going to spoil, but it did add something that the game was lacking. And then, of course, if you wanted to, there's a bunch of other Nerd Castle links down there that you can give the old saucy click to, just in case they strike your fancy. But let's go ahead and dive on into the game and see if we can have fun today with City 20. Welcome to my humble shanty. This is where I live at, and this is my character. Character creation is one of the big features they added with this patch, so you can actually make a character after your own image if you decide to do so. But in City 20, you are in a post-Soviet, post-apocalypse. You were in a place called the Chacha, which I'm guessing is like jail or something else like that. Your escape plan went wrong, and you fell down a mine shaft. You landed somewhere, a guy rescued you, and you woke up inside this environment. There are gangs and factions all over the map that'll give you a little bit of guidance just in case you wanted a little bit of hand-holding in order to get started in the game, but really there's not any goals. As I mentioned, this is a game where you kind of do whatever you want, and there's not really any restrictions on what you can or cannot do. So I've been living my character mostly as like a Mr. Fix-It handyman. I've been fixing stuff for people. I've been sort of a scavenger and like an acquisitions officer, I guess, for the different factions that are around the map. They request stuff, I go out and get it no matter how dangerous it is. At the moment, I don't really have a ton of tasks to show off, but in fact, what I do need to do is I need to track down a battery. I ended up finding a flashlight while I was scavenging last night, which is huge. This is one of those games where if you get a new pair of boots that have higher armor rating, or you find a hatchet, or you find a flashlight, it's a really big deal. That's a come up for your character. But really, it's a survival game where day to day, you're just trying to survive. As long as you feed yourself, water yourself, and go to sleep, the game's not going to complain at you. Neither is the game going to punish you or try to push you in any direction. Find your way through the post-apocalypse the way that you want to. Ah, Christ, that's not good. Okay, they're here. Run! Never mind. I was going to scavenge that building, but unfortunately, I guess that's a little bit of a spoiler. That's one of the new features that they've added, is that this game now has Stalker-style anomalies that are all over the place. Well, not anomalies, but there's things called the Abners or the Atkers or something like that. I call them the Abners. They're like floating electro-zombies? I don't really know how else to describe them. They're like floating, flying electro-zombies, and if they get too close to you, they levitate you up in the air and they like choke the electromagnetic life force out of you. That's not a good thing. I like my electromagnetic life force exactly where it's at, and so I tend to run from them. They can't be defeated in a fight if you stand your ground, but it's really not worth it because tools in this game are kind of hard to get your hands on, and if you waste those tools via doing a lot of combat, you're going to get yourself into trouble. Now, there is a house over on this side. I don't know that anyone actually lives over here. I found a building that I can kick the lock on the door, and there was a bunch of stuff inside of here that I think might be useful for my future, so I figure I'll probably visit this place one more time.
Oh my God.
See if anybody answers the door first. But I've been by here like 2 or 3 times in the last couple days, and nobody's ever around. So I figure we'll break into this house because from what I recall, it was actually fairly well stocked on food. It was fairly well stocked on all kinds of goodies. And so maybe if we can just like bust in here, let me break out my lockpick. Let me see if I can get into this thing. There we go. Okay. Yup. Wait, that didn't count? Why not? Okay, well, let me inside the building. It says that I'm trespassing, so technically, someone has control of this building, but I've been sort of scoping it out. Normally, I don't live like a thief, but the way I see it is, if there's a house around here that has a bunch of resources inside of it, and after 3 or 4 days, I haven't seen anyone go in or out, because just like in Oblivion, in this title, everybody has a routine. They tend to be out and about during the day trying to satisfy their needs via trading or via scavenging. Then they will go back inside at night, they'll cook dinner, they'll do all that kind of stuff. You can fight everybody in this game if you want to. I haven't been doing that just because it seems like it's bad for business, but they've got barley seeds over here. I'll take some barley seeds. That might be helpful. They've got themselves a tank top, not really super helpful as of right now. I'll finish off my stock because they've got a pile of scrap wood here. Scrap wood is used for all kinds of weird little tasks, and so I'll just throw it in there to make my stack a little bit bigger. From there, is there anything in this back room over here? Like, there's a locker over on this side, and it's got a metal hoe inside of it. I don't have a metal hoe, so I'll take it. I'm guessing I'm going to need that at some point in order to make my life a little bit easier. It is a tad dark in here, and I don't really have access to any light sources at the moment. If I read that right there, is it going to teach me anything? No. Did I just hear the door open? I thought I heard the door open. Weird, dude. I swear to God, I heard the sound of the door opening, but I guess not. Let's check a few other places here. So inside the fridge, there is a mess of food inside of here. I will 100% take that. It looks like ingesting that is not good for me. We've got all the potatoes in the world. Whoever's been living here has been stocking up like crazy on food for the winter. But they don't have any power because they haven't hooked up electricity to their house just yet. Oh shit, Brad! Okay, there is a guy that lives here. Luckily, guy did not see me steal anything, but I'll run away off of his property. They will chase you off the property, but it doesn't look like he's aware of the fact that I was thieving from him. Let's go ahead and talk to him real quick. Find out what his name is. Every single NPC in this game can be talked to. There are a ridiculous amount of dialogue trees in this game that let you get to know people. You can talk about events that are happening inside of the zone. The game does have festivals. The game does have random stuff that happens on certain days of the year, in case you were interested in that. I stole this guy's hoe. He's got a screwing tool, mainly for repairing or creating stuff. Yeah, I kind of need that too. I've been looking everywhere for a screwdriver. I can't do any electrical work right now because I can't find a screwdriver anywhere. But first thing I do with every new NPC is I see what they want in trade. So everybody has a number of items on their person. They also have wishes. That's how you're going to make money. It's called Pamyat in this game. And you need Pamyat for tons and tons of things. Just about every problem in this game can be solved with a clever application of the buttering of palms. And so always keep a good supply of cash on you once you get started in the game. Who is this guy? Marfa. Marfa Goliaka, if you want the full version. You're new here, huh? Okay. Every single person in this game can be questioned for the location of other people. They may or may not know where the other person is at, but one of the things that's sort of old school about this title is that there are no quest markers. The game is not going to tell you how to do any of the quests. So, for example, you might find a guy. This guy will be like, hey, this other guy has stolen my screwdriver and refuses to give it back, and when I went over to get it, he threatened me with violence. Go get it back by whatever means necessary. Okay, so now you gotta go around town, you gotta question people as to where the thief might be at. They're not gonna give you an exact location. They'll be like, oh yeah, I think he hangs out over there. And you just gotta kind of keep an eye out and see if you can find him. Once you find him, you can break into his house and see if he stored it inside of his house and try to steal it from him. You can beat the Christ out of him and see if he's got it in his pockets. You can try to bribe him to give it back. It's really up to you how you want to resolve the quest. And so that's one of those things that I think makes this game really interesting and actually quite fun to play inside of the sandbox that they've arranged, is that there's not really any rules for how you get things done in this game. Now, there will be consequences. So let's say if the guy with the screwdriver was a part of a faction and you knife his ass and you kill him inadvertently, you do get the quest item, you take it back to the other faction and you give it to the guy that wanted it. The other faction is still going to be mad at you, though, because you killed one of their guys. And so even when you're doing something positive for one of the denizens of the world, you sort of want to be careful about how you do it. I started out being pretty violent towards anybody that was being a dick, but as the game went along, there was a lot of people that had negative reputation with me. So I figured I'd start smoothing that over and stop being such a thug inside the game world because the ramifications were long-standing. We did pick up a book
let's go to
inside that shed
Fortnite.
right there. Is it going to teach me anything good? It'll allow me to craft a canteen. canteen. Okay, well, that'll be nice. Crafting a canteen will be good. But I do want to go back to my house, and I think I want to plant these barley seeds. I need to get crops going, because I don't know what's going to happen in this game once we actually get to winter or other seasons. I'm guessing that matters, but I've been playing for upwards of 4 hours right now, and I'm only on day 5 or day 6, so the days are fairly long. My chances of actually making it to December or whatever, probably kind of limited, but let's go plant some crops real quick. So my house does have like a little garden on the side over here, and I'm kind of curious about how I can get this planting done. So it looks like I can make a cultivation spot over on this side. Let's see if maybe I can get that arranged. So there's a cultivation spot right there. I do wish that I could put down multiples of them instead of just one at a time, but we'll give it a try here. There's another one. There's another one right there, and then I'll probably try to get like another little row over here possibly. I don't know if it'll fit, but I figure it's probably worth trying. The game does have base building, so this building right here, actually, you'll find buildings occasionally on the map that will allow you to purchase them. I don't even know if I have space to put down another cultivation spot. I do. Okay, there's our final cultivation spot right there. How do I put stuff in the cultivation spot? I've actually never done cultivation before, so I'm willing to try, but let's take out the seeds, and it looks like I need a tool for that. It's got to be the hoe, right? Yeah, let's till the soil a little bit over here. And there we go. Now we're getting it started. Okay, I don't like how the grass doesn't go away, though, when I'm actually tilling the soil. So hopefully they get that fixed later on down the line. But there are a bunch of different houses on the maps of varying sizes that cost various amounts of money. And you can buy them. You get a key to the house. Having your stuff in...
I don't like isometric. I'm such an asshole, but I don't. I don't like isometric. I don't. Why do we do 8 or 9 of those? That seems insane. Is a button being pressed? I don't see anything.
Inside of a house is a pretty good idea because characters in this game, they do go out and they do scatter.
Hey there, Shody Ponies. Here's some Huey Lewis in the news. Oh, good. Laura Loomer. She's that racist lady. Here, we'll put whatever her last racist tweet was on the screen. Wow, look at that, it's so racist, whatever it is. Speaking of social medias and buttons and such, subscribe to our channel, hit the buttons and all that, check out the Patreon, do all the stuff. Anywho, for those of you living happily unaware, Laura Loomer is a racist conspiracy theorist and professional Twitter scumbag. And that's, you know, that's common. Except this racist Twitter scumbag also serves as an outside advisor to President Doorknob John K. Fathan Trump, the grumpy king of America, and sometimes Venezuela, and by the time this airs, who knows where else? Actually, breaking news, it's Iran. Did everyone at home guess Iran? Well, it is, but we wrote this episode before the whole war with Iran thing, so let's continue under the false premise that we don't know who's next. Maybe it'll be Moon City. Thanks, Elon. You're like Tony Stark if instead of making a mech suit, you just lied a lot. Loomer's a lot like Elon, actually, in that they have both been advisors to one of the most powerful people on Earth, with a tremendous level of influence on the world, despite holding no official government position. Wait, sorry, Elon was a special government employee, so cool for him. Oh, and they're both racist. Did I mention Laura Loomer is really racist? That's probably bad, right? She just has the king's ear, like Littlefinger if he were somehow more of an incel. You know, if his fingers were littler. Thus far, Loomer's influence over Trump has taken the form of delivering the president lists of people within the government who are disloyal and who must be excised. Last year, she convinced Trump to fire a dozen national security officials and revoke the security clearances of dozens more. This included dismissing Mike Waltz from his job as national security advisor for allegedly hiring, quote, individuals who have a history of anti-Trump remarks and anti-Trump associations. In other words, hiring people who have never bankrupted a personal frozen meats brand. Loomer also got Trump to fire a federal prosecutor and an assistant U.S. attorney and to remove Secret Service protection for Joe Biden's children. Seems, petty and gross. Also worth noting that she acts and looks exactly like a reality TV show contestant.
You know, you think he's all these terrible things that all of his detractors call him. Why do you want to work for him? Aren't I doing you a favor?
Alligator head, megaphone. Glad you balanced that out with those potted plants. But it's not enough that she's a wildly unqualified podcaster, much like how all of Trump's people are wildly unqualified podcasters. Her position is made even worse by how she came into this power. Specifically, by believing in very little, having absolutely no morals, and just generally being the most unhinged person in any given room. That still describes a lot of Trump people. But Loomer is like the winner of those people. She's the cream of a crop spelled with 3 Ks. She's used the hashtag Proud Islamophobe and called Islam a cancer, said she is a white advocate, and described Representative Jasmine Crockett as a ghetto black bitch who hates America.
What?
Of all the racists working for Trump, she has worked hard to be the most racist of them all. So congratulations, Laura. You are the next apprentice. How is Laura Loomer one of the most powerful people on Earth? We live in a time of dark miracles, is the general lesson to be learned in this episode. Laura Loomer is, to sum it up, a true believer, even though I said she doesn't believe in anything, but she is a true believer. She has the fanatical stare of someone who has eaten evidence. She is loyal to Trump above any ideology or agenda, just for the opportunity to bask in his greasy power. In the theater of politics, she's what's known as a toady, a term that editor-in-chief of CBS News Barry Weiss does not know. Oh, see also the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and Super Mario. She's his self-appointed right hand, and everything she does is a direct result of what she thinks Donald Jamba Juice Trump wants to see. This is by Loomer's own admission. In a profile by The Atlantic, Loomer emphasized that she is performing for an audience of one. She buys a new outfit every time she sees him, like she's meeting her father for the first time after Nick Cage boosted him from prison to save Alcatraz. She told The New Yorker she feels such a deep bond with the president that listening to him speak is like hearing herself, speaking to herself, while also seeming to insinuate that the two of them share an inner monologue, a psychic LAN connection, if you will, so they can play Halo together every time they blink. To be fair, she and Trump are pretty similar, at least in the way they behave in the public eye. They're both lifelong racists who crave attention and speak with no filter, and have no regard for the concept of shame. They're both extremely impulsive and frequently make headlines for their outlandish behavior. But making those headlines is ultimately their goal, like a farting Ouroboros. So we can see why she relates to him. As for Trump, he likes her.
I think she's very nice. I mean, I know she's known as a radical right, but I think Laura Loomer is a very nice person. I've known her for a long time. And, personally, I think she's a patriot. And she gets excited because of the fact that she's a patriot. And she doesn't like things going on that she thinks are bad for the country. I like her.
He likes her. It's wild to hear Trump kind of acknowledge someone as being on the radical right. She's that racist, folks. So to recap, Laura Loomer is a right-wing grifter who believes she has conducted a Vulcan mind meld with Trump, who likes her. And Laura will do absolutely anything to keep Trump's attention and remain in his inner circle. According to her, the president comes first. To the point that she told her boyfriend, if you can't handle that, then go find somebody else. Really good advice. Instead, they got engaged, as leaked by Trump during a Christmas party, because they're besties. Loomer would do anything for Trump, including blowing up her relationship and life. And Trump, likes her too. She's fine. Good pal if you ever need someone to take the blame for financial crimes or future atrocities or anything in between. And she will do it. But in the meantime, she has a direct line to the president, which presumably means she calls him and sends him messages on his unsecured personal cell phone. But it could also mean that she has her own rotary line on Trump's desk, right next to the nuclear one, which is right next to the Diet Coke one. And he doesn't pick up any of the phones without coming. Allegedly. There are rumors of a physical relationship between Loomer and the president, because of course there are. But at the time of this writing, they are just rumors. And Loomer has categorically denied them, although she herself has no problem making claims about the sexual activity of her many perceived enemies. Here's what we do know. Every time Donald Trump blows a load, a Russian spy collapses in their surveillance van like they heard the black speech of Mordor. You can just park those vans in the Rose Garden Club now. I think I just made myself sick, actually. Horrifying stuff going on in the country. So to sum up, Loomer has no official government position, but rather is just Trump's buddy that hangs around and advises him on how to be the president. And Trump listens to her suggestions and acts on them, while recognizing that she's considered a member of the radical right. So radical, in fact, that Trump's team tried to keep her as far away from his re-election campaign as possible because they thought she would ruin his chances. Think about that. Think about being so cosmically far right that Trump's own people would consider her toxic for Trump and hurt his political chances, as if something could hurt his chances. The Stevens Miller and Bannon, Kash Patel, those guys, totally fine. But Trump's inner circle was specifically worried about Laura Loomer. And looking at her past, it's not hard to figure out why. So let's look at her past in a segment we're calling, just for fun, Okay, Loomer. Admittedly, it's weird to do a biography segment on Laura Loomer like she's some kind of historical figure that warrants it. But much like our episode on Stephen Miller, Loomer's origin is extremely telling. She grew up in a conservative household in Arizona because of course, and was sent to boarding school along with her brother while her family cared for a third sibling living with schizophrenia. In her memoir, she remembers being racist from a pretty young age, writing that all the inclusiveness she was being taught in elementary school just didn't feel right. Something inside told her that most people were subhuman, but luckily, she was one of the good ones. You see, by the blind booze cruise casino luck of the circumstances of her birth, Laura Loomer is white, so she decided that being white was the only correct thing to be. Now, as a little girl, Loomer didn't have any friends. I know, I'm shocked too. But to be fair to her, she doesn't say that she didn't have any friends, but rather that she instead considered her friends to be people like Sean Hannity and Bill O'Reilly.
They're
You know,
friends.
the angry old white conservative men yelling at her through her television set, which is honestly more tragic than admitting to a sexual relationship with an imaginary friend. Basically, she grew up in what she describes as a very violent house due to her brother's behavior issues, and was fed a constant stream of conservative propaganda. Quote, I used to come home and watch Bill O'Reilly with my dad every night, and we'd have like 5 TVs on in the house, and it was always Fox News. And keep in mind, this is right after 9/11, which Loomer quite astutely credits as fueling her racism toward Muslims. Also, amid the endless right-wing news commentary, Loomer gravitated towards hidden camera shows like Punk'd, Cheaters, and To Catch a Predator. One of those things doesn't really belong, and it's Punk'd. Punk'd never resulted in a stabbing or a death, unlike those other 2 programs. The stabbing on Cheaters may have been faked, but the assistant district attorney who shot himself on To Catch a Predator was not that. I know it seems weird to mention her fandom of those shows, but there is a connection there. Specifically, the thing these shows have in common is that they're all forms of public shaming, when a person is subjected to a spectacle of humiliation and degradation. Now, to be fair, prank shows like Punk'd are less egregious than something like Cheaters, and you could argue that the subjects of a show like To Catch a Predator deserve to be publicly shamed and also go to jail. But not for, like, entertainment purposes, right? This is shaming for the purpose of triggering righteous anger in the viewer as entertainment. And so we have this young girl growing up fearful and perpetually fed hate-mongering conservative news on 5 TVs at once, and gravitating toward these shows that are designed to surprise and publicly humiliate people for the entertainment of others. This is such an obvious toxic mix that would produce a f***ed up adult like Loomer. And in fact, Loomer credits these shows, along with the antics of right-wing propagandist James O'Keefe, as the inspiration for her brand of activism, which she calls getting Loomered. Now, you may recognize this as a pathetic attempt to take credit for a well-established concept by someone with no original ideas or talent, but she genuinely brags about it, as though getting Loomered is a thing people say when she's not in the room. Like when OJ tried to make his own prank show called Juiced on the premise that it was established slang. You know how you say you've been juiced when you jump out and stab your friends? What if we did punked, but juiced? With me, juice. What do you mean, why did I say stab? I guess my point here is that I don't think TV inherently causes violence or hate or automatically warps kids' minds or whatever. But whenever you watch these ultra-conservatives spewing racism on Fox or really exploitative reality slop, it's easy to think, wow, I wonder what already f***ed up child is being doubly f***ed up by this. And the answer to that is Laura Loomer. So very transparently was she f***ed up by the worst aspects of the 2000s, and isn't even really aware of that. She's aware that it happened and of the source of it, but not that it's really bad. She wears it proudly, taking the racist fear-mongering of post-9/11 Fox News propaganda and cramming it together with gotcha reality TV sensibilities to form just the single worst personality you can imagine. And then, that personality was nurtured in the cesspool of right-wing grifter internet circles. Whew. So let's take a break to vomit, maybe pee a little, and then come back and talk about Laura Loomer's professional rise to power. Again, oof, yeah, ads. No matter what the news is, your perspective is everything. For example, am I Frodo-sized or Gandalf-sized right now? You have no way of knowing, as there are no hobbits or wizards around me for comparison. And when it comes to perspective about the news, me news tiereth, if you will, I recommend Ground News, a website and app Grounddoor News, whatever. A website and app we specifically wanted to sponsor us, which you can access via the QR code on the screen. They gather news from hundreds of media sources alongside context on each source, such as its political bias and who funds it, so that you can compare all of the coverage of every story yourself. I've been working with Ground News for a long time, and that's for a reason. I think they're one of the most powerful solutions for getting to the truth of a story, given all the spin you'll see online. For example, on Ground News, I can see that Tesla robotaxis get into car wrecks about 4 times as often as human drivers. That's really good perspective to have, unless you're one of the right-leaning outlets and all you say is, Tesla's robotaxis report 14 crashes in first 8 months in US. Which isn't as helpful, because you don't know how many robotaxis there are in total, and what rate you would expect crashes with the same number of human drivers. See how that perspective thing is important? And if it wasn't for Ground News, I would have no idea how many news outlets weren't giving the full context. So head over to ground.news/SMN for 40% off unlimited access. You'll get a factuality analysis of each source and their blind spot feature to see which stories are being ignored by one side of the aisle. That's ground.news/SMN for 40% off. The link is in the description. The robotaxis are probably worth avoiding.
Hi everyone. I assume that you're like me. You're just an average gal trying to make your way through the world. You don't have a private chef or a wine column fridge built into your wall or a little French rat to pull your hair to make sure you cook right. That's for fancy folk. But for normal folk like you and I, why, there's Hungry Root! Hungry Root plans all my groceries for the week and delivers everything I need to eat healthy, filling meals every day. With 50,000 different recipes, there's essentially endless variety, with many meals taking only 15 minutes or less to put together. I mean, can your rat friend do that? He doesn't even wear pants! Hungry Root also only sends out food that meets the highest standards, screening out over 200 additives, including high fructose corn syrup, artificial sweeteners, and preservatives. You are going to love Hungry Root as much as I do. And seriously, you guys, I love Hungry Root. I tell all my friends to use it. And for a limited time, get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life of the subscription. Obviously, I mean, for life, it's for life of the subscription. But still, that's free. So go to hungryroot.com/SMN and use code SMN. That's hungryroot.com/SMN, code SMN, to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life of the subscription. Get that leek soup, y'all. Get that ratatouille. Get that whatever else they made in that movie. Coke oven? That stupid rat. It's probably made
That stupid rat.
Hey, we're back from our break that was meant for vomiting and peeing. I actually did neither and split the difference instead. I will let you figure out what that means. So we were talking Loomer, you know that, you were watching the first part, and how she grew up exactly as messed up as you would imagine. Specifically, being fed a steady diet of fear and right-wing propaganda, which are, of course, the same thing. She then spent her time in college endlessly butting heads with the school administration over multicultural events, because she's a racist, including protesting an interfaith 9/11 memorial service her senior year. Those humiliatingly racist antics caught the attention of David Horowitz, who you may recognize as the weird talent recruiter for Nazis who also took Stephen Miller under his wing. He was also a wizened bigot, well-versed in the game of lying about liberal bias on college campuses. His many embarrassing stunts include claiming that a student had been given a failing grade for refusing to write a disparaging essay about George W. Bush. And at one point, he was identified by the Southern Poverty Law Center as one of the chief architects of Islamophobia in America. That's like the MAGA equivalent of a Nobel laureate.
Oh, bitch!
Loomer to James O'Keefe, and she began relentlessly pestering him for a job until he finally took her on as part of a sting operation to discredit the Black Lives Matter movement in 2015. The previous year, Eric Garner was murdered by police officers while being unlawfully detained, and Loomer secretly recorded a conversation with one of Garner's daughters during a shared cab ride. In the conversation, Erica Garner expressed dissatisfaction with Al Sharpton, the controversial activist and media personality who had been organizing protest events on her family's behalf, and that she felt Sharpton was taking advantage of their tragedy for financial gain. Loomer's reporting appeared on the front page of the New York Post the very next day with the headline, "All about the money." I probably don't need to explain all the ways this is stupid, how it's not really journalism. It's a video of someone's kid, not even a public figure or politician, who doesn't know they're being recorded, venting about somebody else, is then being used to try and discredit this person.
13-3, bitch! Wish me luck! This is the last one. Maybe I lose, but I'm in the top, I'm in the top 5. Wish me luck, guys. I hope I get this. I'm full health, might win. Nice. This is good. What's the highest point? It's gonna be that tree. Yep. Right there. See. This guy below me is so dumb. I should drop in on him. I can't move. I can't move. What was this? I don't know where this guy went. He like disappeared without moving. Stealth might be really funny. Oh wait, I have to go back the other way. Wait, why did I lose my stealth? Fuck, come on, man. Use it. Sooner or later, one of these chumps is gonna show. Fuck was that? What? I heard him land by me. I can't see him at all. I heard him, but I don't see him. See? There he is. There, see? Yeah, bitch! I got him! Woo! Such a good feeling. 4 beers deep. I love you guys. I'm going to bed. 2 crowns. Yeah. All right. I love you guys. I'm going to bed. Thank you so much for your time. You've been watching Skycat Live. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Put me on in the background. Click on the cast face to donate. It's a PayPal link here. Go to my Twitch or my YouTube. Give me a like, sub, or a follow. I love you guys. Thank you so much, and I will see you later. Bye. Oh, a reminder. I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel, which is reflected here. I'm going to post more videos as, as I go on. I've got a lot of stuff here that I've got to do. I got a lot of uploads that I got to resume. But, you know, that is what it is. And I love you guys. Thank you so much for your time. I'll see you in a bit. Got thousands of videos on my YouTube channel. Come check me out, yo. See ya. All right, I love you guys. Bye.